Hello everyone, Omni-sensei here with What If I Were Reborn in MHA as Kirishima? Part 2. If you enjoy this content, smash the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description.
Kirishima spent 4 hectic days with Yui, growing ever closer to her with each passing moment. He carefully taught her the fundamentals of boxing while also showing her how to care for herself. Cooking, taking care of her, and all that came with it. With a natural aptitude and a solid foundation, Yui rapidly picked up the techniques of boxing. There were moments of intense training interspersed with well-earned breaks. Occasionally, Kirishima would unveil recipes he'd learned from the hammer teacher, once known in his past life as the white teacher in America, and Yui, along with Uyama, eagerly devoured the unexpected dishes. Among all the dishes, the teppanyaki garnered unanimous praise. His sporadic experience with it in a previous life, when he'd stumbled upon it by chance, finally proved its worth. These days, Yui seemed to be spending more time on her phone, keeping in touch with her friends. That very day, during a break between training sessions, Yui was absorbed in her phone. Wah! Eek! Don't do that, big brother. Haha. I was so engrossed that I just had to give you a little scare. The more I look at you, the more your first impression just crumbles. After startling Yui and chuckling, Ojiro playfully smacked Kirishima with his tail. Though he had seemed jovial when they first met, now that they were close, his mischievous streak was more apparent than ever. He mostly pulled pranks on the kids. Oddly enough, despite claiming he disliked children, his actions told a very different story. If he was going to act that way, Kirishima thought he might as well just admit he liked them. Are you online? Yeah. Mio said she's heading to Disneyland tomorrow, so I told her it sounded like a blast. Who's Mio? You met her last time, the girl with the twin tails. Oh, that quirky girl who's a bit obsessed with appearances? Obsessed? Girls naturally like handsome guys. You big brother love cute, pretty girls too. Don't act like you don't. I'm the kind of guy who sees people's true hearts. Looks don't really matter to me. Then why's your best friend a pretty older lady? She's got a kind soul, and her beauty just blossomed naturally. It hadn't helped matters when Kirishima, showing a child photos from his phone gallery, ended up revealing pictures of his friends as well. Yui couldn't help but fixate on Ishido's photo, bombarding him with questions about who she was and how close they really were. Kirishima offered only vague answers. When she saw Bakugo's picture, she remarked that he was handsome but looked like he had a terrible temper. And when it came to Midoriya, she noted that while kind, his excessive kindness might make life difficult for those around him. Kirishima tilted his head at her surprisingly keen observations. So, she's really going to Disneyland tomorrow? All by herself? Yeah. She asked if I'd go with her, but I turned her down. Huh? Why? We're off training tomorrow anyway. Might as well have a day of fun. It's expensive. Ah. Kirishima winced inwardly. Raised in a well-off middle-class family that leaned toward the comfortable side, he had never known financial hardship growing up. He wasn't one for extravagance, but even in his past life, when he'd earned tens of millions per fight, he'd never been one to indulge recklessly, so his habits hadn't changed much. Compared to the rough childhood of being beaten by his father and chased out by his mother back then, this life was nothing short of heaven. In contrast, Yui's dojo simply didn't attract a lot of students, leaving her family with much tighter resources. Kirishima paused to think. His parents had insisted that during their travels he shouldn't just focus on training, but also gather a variety of experiences and have a little fun. They'd warned him that by the time he enrolled at UA next year and embarked on his path to becoming a hero, there'd be little time to relax. He had confessed his dream of becoming the strongest to them when he was just 10 years old. They fretted over him living too tightly, and though they supported his ambitions, their concerns never fully vanished. So, you really want to go? I do, but the kid's ticket is 4,800 yen. Really? Hold on a sec. Without delay, Kirishima dialed his parents. He knew he'd be spending a decent sum tomorrow and needed their approval beforehand. Hello? Oh, hey mom. What's with our son calling at this hour? You never really pay attention during the day, and not much at night either. You said you'd call every day, yet it's been 3 days of just sending line messages.
I'm sorry.
His mother's slightly sulky tone made it clear she wasn't amused. And even after 15 years of being her son, Kirishima hurriedly apologized. 15 years in, and I'm still the clumsy son, huh? Sorry, Mom. I know this is sudden, but I'm planning to go to Disneyland tomorrow. I wanted to give you a heads up since it's going to cost a bit. You? Going to Disneyland? When your father and I offered to take you on Children's Day, you complained it'd be too crowded and noisy. Well, Kirishima explained the situation in broad strokes. He was planning to take along a friend, the daughter of the dojo master he'd grown close to. His mother, however, greeted the news with enthusiasm. Oh, then I owe that girl a thank you. Taking our Eiji-chan to an amusement park. How sweet. No, I'm the one taking her. Would you have even gone if it weren't for her? It's basically like she's taking you along. Is that so? After his mother cheerfully wished him a good time, Kirishima ended the call and turned to Yui. You heard that? Make sure you tell Mio you're coming along too. Big brother, are you sure it's okay? Yeah. Besides, I'll finally get to experience an amusement park for the first time myself. Still sporting a slightly hesitant expression, Kirishima patted Yui's head. Oh, and don't forget, you need to check with the dojo master first. Go ask him, quick. Okay. Kirishima chuckled as he watched Yui dash over to Uyama, who was standing off to the side with a serious look on his face. Kids were irresistibly adorable before middle school, he thought. After that, things got a bit overwhelming. Dad said it's fine. Thank you, big brother. No problem. Besides, I'm tagging along to experience something entirely new myself. Still, I'll pay you back when I'm older. Kirishima couldn't help but laugh at Yui's rapid-fire promises of repayment as she hurried off to Uyama. The expense might sting a little, but since he hardly ever splurged, and his parents had already been taken aback by the idea, he could afford a generous day out. Uyama, meanwhile, looked a touch disappointed at having to guard the dojo. But what could he do? It was, after all, the burdens of being the head of the household. But what should I wear? Everything I packed is just t-shirts. It's summer, so maybe that's all right. Watching Yui with a satisfied grin, Kirishima soon found himself fretting over his outfit. Time flew by, and before long the next day dawned. Yui grumbled about time dragging on, though. You do look cute in that outfit. Outside the house, Yui stamped her feet in a bright red dress with a small bag slung over her shoulder, radiating excitement. Meanwhile, Kirishima, in his usual black jeans and t-shirt, couldn't help but smile. Big brother. Hurry up. Mio's car will be here in 10 minutes. All right, I'm coming. But isn't 10 minutes a good chunk of time? We can just wait outside and catch a ride with her family. That's not the point. Unable to temper Yui's frantic urgency, Kirishima finally stepped out the front door. Although waiting another 5 minutes might have been sufficient, Yui's restless energy left him no choice but to join her. Yui-chan. Mio-chan. Only 6 days ago, you two were at each other's throats. Watching the two children embrace like long-lost friends, Kirishima couldn't help but wonder what had ever caused their earlier rift. At the same time, he greeted the woman who appeared to be Mio's mother as she stepped out of the driver's seat. As always, Kirishima smoothly switched to full hospitality mode upon meeting an adult for the first time. Hello, I'm Kirishima Eijiro, Yui's big brother. Oh, so you're Yui's big brother. Nice to meet you. I'm Akane Inoue, Mio's mother. Yes. Pleasure to meet you, Ms. Inoue. Mio's mother, though dressed lightly for summer, carried herself with an elegant, intellectual air, a stark contrast to her daughter's somewhat scatterbrained charm. From the car she had arrived in and the style she exuded, Kirishima could tell that Mio came from a very comfortable background. In his previous life, being well-off wasn't unusual, so it didn't stir much in him. Thank you for letting them come along today. Thanks to you, I'm finally getting my first taste of an amusement park. It wasn't any trouble at all. I rarely get to spend time with Mio, so I managed to carve out some time today, but I felt it'd be a bit lonely just the two of us. She accepted his remark about this being his inaugural amusement park visit without any fuss. Accustomed as he was to the condescending airs of the upper crust, Kirishima found her warm demeanor rather refreshing. Hearing that makes me feel like a father. At 41, I'd probably have a kid around Yui's age. Lost in such thoughts, Kirishima gathered the two girls, now deep in excited chatter about all the things girls love, and ushered them into the car. The four of them drove straight to Disneyland. Soon enough, the blue-spired castle that stood as Disneyland's icon welcomed them. Even though it was summer vacation, being a weekday meant the park wasn't overly crowded. Kirishima, who despised hectic crowds, quietly exhaled a sigh of relief. Eek, it's a real castle. Isn't this your first time at Disneyland, Yu-chan? Yeah, I've never been here before. Follow me. I'll show you around properly. Even though her mother would be accompanying them, Mio eagerly assumed the role of guide. Watching her, Kirishima subtly cranked up his hardening, the technique he always kept on standby. It was time to put that special technique to use. After all, he couldn't afford to lose sight of the kids. It was somewhat amusing that his first real deployment of the technique wasn't in battle, but rather to keep an eye on these little ones. It's still only about 15 meters. Though he dedicated himself to perfecting boxing techniques from his previous life, Kirishima now felt free to move beyond those old standards in this new world. A world that felt like it had leaped right off the pages of a manga. Inspired, he even attempted to recreate various techniques he'd seen in fictional media. Some experiments, like his attempt at force control, nod to his Star Wars fandom, ended in complete failure. After all, this world lacked midichlorians, and he was heading in the wrong direction from the start. Yet some techniques succeeded, and one such success was the airspace control he had now deployed. This ability created a protective bubble around him that both sensed and repelled anything approaching. A power honed through the enhanced perception granted by hardening. It allowed him to perceive his surroundings with a nearly animalistic, all-encompassing awareness. You too. Don't run off too fast. 3.67 meters. They're really excited, aren't they? Noticing the gap widening between himself and the kids, Kirishima quickly caught up, grasping both of their hands firmly. Stay close, or you might get lost. Okay. As the two children enthusiastically pumped their fists in agreement, Kirishima remembered the early days of mastering airspace control. Back then, its range was barely as far as his hand could reach and left him vulnerable to blind spots. Now, stretching out to about 15 meters, it was a source of deep pride. The trade-off, however, was that the constant bombardment of sensory information left his brain teetering on overload, often making him appear unusually serene and withdrawn to onlookers. Ms. Inoue eyed Kirishima's cool, collected demeanor for a moment. Aren't you feeling unwell? Not at all. I'm here as a guardian, trying to stay calm while keeping an eye on the kids. My, Kirishima-kun, you're remarkably mature. Hearing her admiration, Kirishima glanced over at the children, now safely keeping a reasonable distance as they walked. If they ever got lost, it'd be a disaster. Still, I doubt anything serious will happen. Today marked Yui's very first visit to an amusement park. There was no reason to create unnecessary tension. Gazing at the castle that seemed straight out of a fairy tale, Kirishima pulled his thoughts together. The magical, once-in-a-lifetime amusement park outing had begun. Kirishima and the kids entered Disneyland with a one-day pass and headed for World Bazaar. The modern American-style buildings welcomed Kirishima as soon as he stepped in. The group paused on Center Street, debating which attraction to visit first. Caribbean. Let's start with Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean? Isn't that just a movie? I don't know about the film, but here the Pirates ride is really fun. The movie was fun too, he thought. Mio was determined to begin with Pirates of the Caribbean, her enthusiasm radiating with every word. Kirishima had only managed a brief comment, remarking that it shared its title with a movie he'd seen in a past life, before being met with nothing but reassurances of its fun factor. Mio went on to explain enthusiastically why the ride was so enjoyable, and Kirishima gathered that it fulfilled a child's sense of adventure. So, should we head there first? What do you think, Yui and Kirishima? I'm in. I'm not really sure about it, but if Yui likes it, I'm game too. Aside from Mio's mother, Kirishima was the only one mature enough to take an interest in the park, so he naturally assumed the role of Yui's guardian, letting the children steer the day's itinerary. Even Yui, a first-timer at Disneyland, found that Mio's experience practically meant Mio was calling the shots. You're going to love it. Mio's recommendation is all I need. I'll trust her judgment. Because the line wasn't too long, Yui and Mio were soon boarding the boat, both wearing bright, eager expressions. Mio, didn't you ride this last time? You're really excited, aren't you? You don't get it, big brother. The first ride always feels different from the second. Each time, there's a new thrill. Oh, really? The boat began its journey into darkness. It passed by houses and taverns reminiscent of the pirate age before entering a tunnel adorned with a Jolly Roger and crossed cutlasses. After navigating what looked like an underwater cave, the boat emerged into a treasure-laden cavern. Every section boasted its own distinctive background music and narration, all crafted with impressive detail. Then it slid through a passage designed to mimic the sound and feel of falling water. As Davy Jones's face appeared in the rippling water, Kirishima couldn't help but think, this really is the Pirates of the Caribbean I know. Amazing, Disney. You've managed to bring it to life in this world. Soon a ship resembling a slightly smaller black pearl came into view. The iconic theme song from Pirates of the Caribbean, interspersed with bursts of cannon fire, resonated through the attraction perfectly. Lost in memories of a film he'd loved years ago, Kirishima began to enjoy the dark ride. The children, meanwhile, were completely absorbed in the experience. The boat then entered a fortress lined with fire-spitting cannons, offering a glimpse of the town's lively inhabitants. The air was filled with merry shouts and singing. After passing through the town, the boat floated past a farewell squawking parrot and emerged into daylight. Kirishima, pleased by how well the ride had turned out, glanced over at Yui. Yui's face was flushed with excitement, barely able to catch her breath. Hey, breathe. Even if it's fun, you need to take a breath. Ha. Wow, that was awesome, right? This is exactly the first ride you should try when you come to Disneyland. After giving her a few gentle pats on the back and some deep breath reminders, Yui soon recovered, her eyes sparkling with delight. Mio joined in, clearly impressed with her own excellent choice. Not bad at all, Kirishima thought, though he couldn't quite fathom the boundless enthusiasm of the children. Later, after a great start to the day, the group visited a treehouse, watched a performance by 4 singers in parrot costumes on a Hawaiian-style stage, and even rafted to Tom Sawyer Island. They explored cabins, caves, and forts before finally boarding Big Thunder Mountain, one of the few thrills in the park. The runaway mine train ride, set in a gold mine, was exciting in its own right. However, since the train twisted sharply sideways rather than taking a steep drop, Kirishima found it a bit underwhelming. The kids still had a blast, though. When the children's energy threatened to lead them off to the next ride immediately, Kirishima managed to corral them and head to the restaurant that had been reserved in advance. Mio's mother had secured the booking, and even though Disneyland wasn't overly crowded, the restaurant was completely full. Kirishima couldn't help but admire her foresight. Is this the wisdom of a true parent? Impressive, he thought. Thanks to you, we got a table. I really appreciate you taking care of everything. Thank you. Oh, it was nothing. We all need to eat, so I had to make sure everyone was taken care of. And if you keep calling me mother, I start to feel like I'm getting too old for this. Just call me Inoue. Ah, yes. Then I'll call you Ms. Inoue. She answered with a gracious smile, further endearing herself to Kirishima. Soon enough, the food arrived. The children were served hamburger steaks complete with little flag picks, while pasta was placed in front of Kirishima and Inoue. Normally one to steer clear of carbohydrate-heavy meals, Kirishima decided that for a day of fun, it was a worthy exception. He cut Yui's hamburger steak into bite-sized pieces. Yui pouted slightly. I can do it myself. Really? Sorry about that. Just eat for now. Next time you can cut it yourself. Kirishima, you're such a caring big brother. It's really nice to see. It's nothing. Just the bare minimum. Although Kirishima felt a bit flustered by the praise for something so obvious, he couldn't help but smile. After all, isn't it natural to help a child who's still learning how to use a knife? Mio, who had been glancing at Yui with a hint of envy, shook her head in denial. My big brother's never done that before. You're lucky. Yui, your big brother is not only handsome but kind too. Sometimes I wonder why our family's little pig is like that. Mio, you shouldn't talk about your brother like that. Inoue gently but firmly chided Mio for her teasing sibling banter. Mio glanced at her mother before slicing her own hamburger steak and offering a piece to Yui. Come on, Yui, try it. It's delicious. Wow, it really is amazing, right? I've had hamburger steak at a bunch of places, but I've never tasted it this good. And the pasta isn't bad either sometimes. Kirishima, you don't usually eat Western food, do you? Not really. I mean, I cook steak fairly often, but pasta is too carb-heavy for my taste. Oh, you mentioned you do martial arts, right? Mio couldn't stop talking about how her handsome big brother impressed her. Ho ho. Honestly, I was just showing off a little in front of the kids. Still, I'm glad Mio thinks so highly of it. Now I'm curious too. I'd love to see it sometime. Ah, if there's ever a chance, I'll show you. The meal continued amid cheerful conversation. The food was delicious, and the company even better. After the satisfying meal, the group headed to Toontown, a whimsical area themed around the homes of cartoon characters, to take a breather. Once again, following Mio's enthusiastic suggestion, Kirishima ended up at Minnie's house, only to frown when he saw it. The brightly colored house was charming enough, but the doorway was lower than he expected. It was clearly designed with little ones in mind. In the end, Kirishima chose to wait outside while Inoue took the children inside. I'm going to the restroom for a bit. If I'm not there when you come out, give me a call. Okay. The brief reply, as if texting were too much hassle, spurred Kirishima to head toward the restroom he had noticed earlier. Strolling along a road whimsically decorated in keeping with Toontown's theme, he encountered a clown heading his way. The clown's striking red eyes, almost as if accentuated by colored contacts, and his red-painted nose and lips made a bold impression. The pristine white, lace-trimmed, old-fashioned outfit only added to the character's allure. Did Disney really have a character like this? Kirishima wondered, tilting his head at the mischievous expression. He wasn't particularly a Disney buff, but this was a costume he hadn't seen before. I didn't have time for cartoons when I was little, and as I grew older, they just never appealed to me, he mused. With a grin that revealed his buck teeth, the clown passed by, and Kirishima decided to simply continue on his way. It struck him as silly to worry about the existence of a Disney character when he hardly paid attention to Disney in the first place. And so his irritation with the man faded. After using the restroom and returning to Minnie's house, Kirishima sensed that something was off. The house, once bright and cheery, now felt oddly dark and drab. Frowning, he was about to step inside when he noticed the door slowly creaking open. It was like an old door left unattended for ages. Crumbles of dust falling away as a figure emerged. The person, battered and torn with patches of blistered skin as if burned, limped forward. Watching the injured figure approach, Kirishima narrowed his eyes. "Eiji, come on in." To his astonishment, the figure spoke in his mother's voice. Instantly, his face turned cold as he cranked up his hardening. There was no way his mother, who was supposed to be at home, should appear in such a hideous state here. "So this is your trick," he thought. Just as before, when a hardening first manifested, his skin transformed into rigid polygonal shapes. At the same time, steam-like vapor began to rise from his body. The scene before his eyes seemed to melt away, collapsing onto the floor. So it was a quirk after all. Thank goodness, hardening awakened in time, he mused. Quirks, after all, can carry a trace of human consciousness. Kirishima recalled that, after a brutal childhood skirmish when he lost consciousness, he'd encountered a version of himself from a past life. A consciousness that had somehow taken root within his quirk. Perhaps because he had lived two lives, that past self, longer established or more fiercely defined, became entwined with his own quirk. He still couldn't fathom why that former self had been such a cheeky, mischievous kid. Looking back, the cryptic questions he exchanged with that part of himself now seemed like hints at the potential of his quirk. Should it develop as a shield, emphasizing resilience, or as a spear, focusing on explosive physical power? At the crossroads, Kirishima had greedily chosen to harness both aspects. It was tough, but definitely worth it, he thought. After countless experiments and rigorous training, Kirishima had reached a new plateau. By controlling his polygonal hardening down to the cellular level, he was now able to maintain hardening subtly at all times. If necessary, he could relayer the hardened cells into a new polygonal formation to boost its durability even further. Even his modest boost in physical strength had grown to rival that of any enhancement-type quirk. In that moment, Kirishima finally found answers to questions he had long harbored. He had always found the separate category of enhancement quirks puzzling. Were they simply about gaining speed and strength? Then how did those superhuman bodies survive the strain? Kirishima concluded that most enhancement quirks also carried a protective function for the user's body when activated. If so, his own hardening and standard enhancement quirks were only different in their initial emphasis, while their ultimate aim was the same. In the end, the ideal evolution was a being of unparalleled strength, speed, and immortality. It wasn't just about switching a quirk on or off. It was about evolving into a whole new class of life. The steaming aura around Kirishima was the testament to that evolution. Quirk resistance. I never expected something like this, but it's incredibly useful, he mused. This second awakening of hardening didn't just deflect physical attacks. Kirishima discovered that if he pushed hardening to its limits, it could even ward off quirks that directly targeted him. A friend's prank, spinning a finger so long that it induced dizziness, had shown him that it worked exclusively against quirks affecting him personally. No matter what result a quirk produced, he would still have to endure its impact. For instance, if someone had a quirk that turned whatever they touched into water, Kirishima could resist being transformed into water himself. But he couldn't stop them from creating water and splashing it around. Even so, that singular advantage provided Kirishima with a reliable means to protect himself in a world overflowing with absurd quirks. I don't know who you are, but I'm about to show you hell, he vowed. With a crooked smile, Kirishima stepped toward Minnie's house. The unmistakable scent of battle lingered in the air around him. Yui stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest. The solid wall blocked her path. She couldn't tell whether the chill creeping along her back was from the cool surface of the wall or the cold sweat beading on her skin. The charming interior of the house, moments ago so inviting, now loomed as a scene of terror. The two companions who had come with her were visibly shaken. Mio flailed her arms at empty air, screaming at a father who wasn't even there to stay. Inoue, though not making any sudden movements, was curled up silently, trembling uncontrollably. "Isn't it beautiful?" Those eerily glowing red eyes locked onto Yui. The man in the clown costume grinned, baring his protruding front teeth in a way that both disturbed and stirred a creeping terror deep within her. Yui pulled Mio and Inoue close behind her as she glared at the clown responsible for this nightmare. "Oh, you're a brave little one. I like that type." He bowed with exaggerated flourish. The crisp wrinkles in his pristine white outfit fluttered in stark contrast to his vivid red, painted lips. His otherworldly, grotesque appearance made Yui's eyes flutter uneasily. "Nice to meet you, cute little one. I am Wiseman, the clown of dreams and hope, a friend to all children." With a sly wink, he punctuated his greeting. Yui slipped one hand behind Mio's back, out of the clown's sight, and began sending a desperate message. "Dad, help." The clown, either oblivious or indifferent, kept his gaze fixed on Mio as he continued his unsettling explanation. "You see, I believe that humans are most beautiful when they are gripped by fear. The kaleidoscope of expressions they make when terror overwhelms them is truly magnificent." What are you talking about? "Oh, is it too much for you to understand because you're still so young? Yet you do appreciate pretty and cute things, don't you?" "I certainly do." In short, that is exactly why all of this is happening. Intoxicated by his own words, he gestured passionately. Although his voice was unusually high for an adult man, there was an abrasive, scratchy quality to it that filled the cramped room. "I long to witness humans, plunged into despair and cast into the abyss by fear, struggle in their final moments. But no one ever lends me a hand. Ignorant mortals, blind to the grandeur of art." "Ah, but I'm not talking to you, so there's no need to be frightened. When you're young, it's only natural to not fully understand greatness." Desperation surged through Yui as she searched frantically for a means of escape. The wall was pressed against her back. The only door in this room lay beyond the clown calling himself Wiseman. That meant she'd have to break past him somehow to flee. But how? Considering the clown's lanky frame, almost as tall as Kirishima, it seemed nearly impossible to force a way through him. Moreover, the two people behind her were in such a bad state that she wasn't sure if abandoning them was even an option. Her mind felt paralyzed by tension, unable to formulate a plan. "Now then, my brave little friend, take a look at the faces of the two beside you. That little one who seems to be your friend is reacting in a textbook manner." Before she knew it, Yui's eyes shifted toward Mio's tear-stained face. Mio, pressed against the wall, was inching backward as if trying to vanish, tears streaming down her face. Though Yui couldn't quite decipher what Mio saw, the raw anguish etched on her face sent shivers down Yui's spine. "Ah, isn't that a compelling sight? A look that seems to soak the barren heart of this wretched clown. And the adult over there remains inexplicably calm, which makes it even better. Those types, when broken, reveal an intensity that is simply thrilling. I don't know about all that soaking, but one thing's for sure, you're insane." "Oh, I'm not insane. You are." The clown chuckled with a ridiculous expression as he pointed directly at Yui. Just as he was about to speak again, the door behind him creaked open. Hope flickered in Yui's heart as she thought Kirishima might have arrived. But instead, a bear draped entirely in black fur stepped through the doorway. "I did as I was told. I'll get you to see Mama soon." Wiseman promised. And Wiseman keeps his promises. Quiet. I'll take care of it once I'm done here, so just stay still. If you start causing a ruckus, I'll show you the monster under the bed again. Okay, I'll wait quietly. I promise to behave. The bear, speaking in a clumsy tone, simply stood behind him. The clown's face twisted into an expression of irritation before he returned his focus to Yui with a smile. Now, where was I? All right. I was saying our brave little friend is downright crazy. Let's see if you're as smart as you are brave. Tell me this. Why do the two people beside you look that way? How should I know? Oh my. It seems my little friend isn't very bright after all. Of course, it's all thanks to my quirk. Right now, both of them are seeing their deepest fears. It's utterly entertaining, more thrilling, they say, than any horror movie. Ah, don't you think I'm too kind? They get their thrill. I get to feast on their beautiful expressions, and it even gives them a chance to overcome their trauma. I really should have earned a psychology license. What do you mean, quirk? Yui was about to dismiss the clown's absurd ramblings when it suddenly struck her. A mental-type quirk might just be possible. Though mental quirks were rare, they weren't as non-existent as something like Bombay Blood or RH Null. A bit late, but correct. I can reveal anything I wish, be it your fears or your desires. Unfortunately, I don't exactly know what each one is, as it depends on your life experiences. That's why I like Wiseman. If you just listen, he shows you the good things. You be quiet. Don't say another word until this is over. Okay, I won't talk. Then tell me, why am I not conjuring an illusion? If that thought doesn't cross your mind, you must be a monkey. I doubt my little friend is that foolish. With the situation growing ever more dire, Yui felt her resolve beginning to crumble. A quirk that could display whatever its wielder desired left her with no easy route of escape. Any attempt to put distance between them would surely trigger an illusion that'd render her helpless. To make matters worse, the only exit was barred by that enormous bear. Just when despair threatened to consume her, Yui recalled Kirishima's words from before. Listen carefully, Ojiro. If you, too, dream of becoming a hero, there's something you must remember. And Yui, this applies to you as well. It might be early, but it never hurts to know. Kirishima's grave expression, so unlike his usual gentle smile, startled her. Fundamentally, I and Yui are all destined to develop abilities that lean toward combat. Even if you become a hero someday, fighting will be your primary duty. So heed my words. Never, ever give up. Struggle until your last breath. With an unwavering intensity on his face, he continued, fighting as a hero means there are people counting on you. You must not give up. I won't say you'll never fall. After all, the world is vast and quirks vary wildly, so mismatches are inevitable. But never let yourselves be the first to break. Fight with every ounce of courage, and do not end up running away with your tail between your legs. After his stirring words, Kirishima's expression softened once more. Yui remembered the gentle way he had patted her head and wondered if it was all perhaps too soon for her to bear such expectations. She could still feel the warmth emanating from his massive hand. Resolutely, Yui clenched her fist. The clown beamed at her defiant expression, laughing so heartily that it seemed his mouth might split wide open. Ah, what a magnificent look! I adore the face of someone who's both proud and brave. It's precisely for that reason I left you unscathed. The expression of one lone soul, abandoned while others flounder in a sea of fear, is nothing short of exquisite. It's art. Is that so? Still, I'm not going to kneel before you. Oh, of course you should. And mark my words, you will kneel. You'll beg me to spare your life, and perhaps even plead for the two behind you. Look at the reality, little one. You're nothing but a small, weak child burdened with two others. He curled a finger and sneered. As infuriating as it was, Yui had to admit the overwhelming disadvantage she faced. Your confident stance now is entirely due to the mercy I've bestowed upon you. Understand this. You cannot defeat me. You can't run. And behind me stands a foolish yet mighty bear. So tell me, little one, who will be the one to drown in a sea of blood after tasting despair? No matter what you say, I'm not giving in. What? Haven't I made myself clear? You can do nothing. You're a powerless child, alone in this world. Who is there to help you? No one. Give up, little one, for no one will come to your rescue. This house has been sealed off by my quirk. Anyone who comes near will only see the illusion meant for them. Now, tell me, who will save the brave but fragile child standing against a villain? I will. What? Before the clown could protest further, a large, powerful hand burst through the door, seizing the bear by the back of its head. Soon after, Kirishima appeared, tearing the door apart as he charged in. He slammed the bear onto the floor and declared, "I'm the one who's going to save her. Don't you understand Japanese? No answer? Then let me say it in English. I am her champion." Leaving the stunned clown behind, Kirishima barreled forward and smashed down the wall behind Yui. The clown could only stutter in shock at the sheer swiftness of it all. "You? How did you get in here? No one should be able to come within 30 meters. Run now. It's sudden, but I'll stop him before he can target you." Yui's eyes widened as she took in the sight of Kirishima's broad, sturdy back. It was like an unyielding mountain. Seeing him so energized for the first time bolstered her resolve, steadying her heart on the verge of surrender. She longed to rush into his arms and weep, but now was not the time. Though Kirishima had felled the bear, the clown still stood, and if his words were to be believed, Yui remained within his reach. Without hesitation, Yui sprinted toward the light. "Hey, KGH, shut up." From the very moment Yui began to move, Kirishima sensed her every step within his territory. He lunged at the clown, preventing him from halting her progress. Every quirk comes at a price: concentration, stamina, and the like. Such abilities often falter the moment focus is broken. A supersonic jab slammed into the clown's mouth. Broken teeth burst forth, scattering through the air. He had pulled his punch just enough to avoid being lethal, sparing his face from complete destruction. Qua! Just as Kirishima prepared to land another crushing blow, the bear, previously down, rose, roared, and swung its massive forepaw. With claws flailing across his vision, Kirishima laughed heartily. Unlike the clown, who had nothing but his quirk, this was an opponent worth striking. And so began a grim ballet of blood and shattered bones. Even as a claw the size of a human face hurtled toward him, Kirishima remained remarkably calm. Instead, he laughed. "Ah, aren't you the genuine friend of children? Teddy bear, let's have some fun. You hit Wiseman. That's bad. But people die." With a swift step backward, Kirishima knocked the creature's forepaw inward. At the same moment, he tapped the paw, now weighted forward, and pushed against its back. The bear, its high center of gravity at odds with its stubby legs, toppled forward and rolled clumsily across the ground. Of course, only someone with Kirishima's immense strength could have made that possible. "This is fun. You really are made to be a friend to children. Stay put. I'll come over to play in just a moment. But first, you should get some sleep. GHK." Smiling, Kirishima addressed the bear whose head was jammed into a hole in the wall roughly the size of his own body. Then he landed a solid blow to the dazed clown's jaw. The man went limp immediately. "This place is too cramped for big fellas like you and me. Let's take it outside and really play." After casually tossing the fallen clown aside, Kirishima kicked the bear in the rear as it struggled to free its head. The beast's massive body burst through the wall and was flung outside. Had they continued clashing here, the entire building might have collapsed. Kirishima and the bear cared little for crumbling walls, but the clown was another matter. Though he didn't relish the thought of worrying over the life of a villain who toyed with people, as an aspiring hero he couldn't allow the clown to die, so he forced the man out. Because Kirishima had knocked the clown out cold, those emerging from their hallucinations screamed in terror when the bear suddenly crashed out of the building. In truth, unleashing the creature into a wider area could have been extremely dangerous. Yet Kirishima trusted the vast difference in power between himself and the monster he had assessed. The beast was formidable, but an insurmountable wall separated them. With a wry grin, Kirishima looked at the bear as it shook its head, attempting to clear its senses. "Now then, you foolish beast, it's party time. A festival of spilled blood and shattered bones has begun. Go wild." Activating, hardening. At its peak, his skin took on a layered, rock-like texture that exuded a demonic presence. The onlookers, emerging from a cloud of dust and debris from the shattered wall, stared at Kirishima in bewilderment. Though a fight was clearly underway, no one could tell which side was the villain. Still, the more perceptive among them quickly called for a hero. "Grr, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Oh, I'm not going to kill you, but you're about to feel a world of pain." No sooner had he finished speaking than Kirishima closed in on the bear, delivering a rapid 1-2 punch. His attack, faster than sound, hammered into the beast's hardened skull. The clamor of colliding hard bodies echoed across the crowded open space. Still, the bear managed to shake its head and swing its arms at Kirishima. But Kirishima was already moving to its side. With terrifying speed and relentless force, his blows rained down on the creature. As he circled the bear, relentlessly landing strike after strike, Kirishima smirked to himself. It's strong enough, but utterly lacking in technique. Pure brute force like that of a wild animal. In the close-quarters melee, where his agile footwork enabled him to dodge swiftly while unleashing rapid combinations, the bear was simply outmatched. Its clawed strikes, accompanied by a roar that resembled a scream, never managed to come close to Kirishima. Desperate, the beast attempted to grab him and bite outright. Yet Kirishima dodged to the side and delivered a fierce uppercut through the gap between the flailing arms, crashing into its jaw. Even the bear, battered by blow after blow, finally reached its breaking point. Its eyes glazed over, and it collapsed forward. As Kirishima scratched his chin while surveying his unexpectedly effortless victory, a frenzied shout rang out. "Get up, useless bear! Get up and finish them off! At least buy me some time." The clown, somehow managing to rise and emerge through the rubble, screamed hysterically. Simultaneously, he activated his quirk. When the steam that had settled after his earlier defeat began to emanate from his entire body, Kirishima knew trouble was brewing. He rushed to the clown and struck him so swiftly that the man barely registered the attack, then frowned at the sight of the clown laughing incoherently even as he choked. "What's so amusing? Is it funny to see your own face when you're about to be hauled away? HK. You fool. I can project hallucinations onto people, but I can't choose exactly what they see. The effect is more thematic, like fear, joy, or sorrow. Still, I do know what that little guy is witnessing. He told me everything. So what? Does it really matter what our teddy bear sees? You're finished anyway. Now, quietly contemplate what prison food might taste like. Is that so? I didn't even know my quirk could work like this until that creature showed up. You conceited, dim-witted brawler who knows nothing of art, learn what true power is." At that moment, the bear, previously sprawled on the ground, rose to its feet with a savage roar. The bellow reverberated through the air, sending chills down the spines of all who heard it. Kirishima smirked as he observed the spectacle. "Oh, so you've powered up, huh? Like a boss entering phase 2? This should be interesting. Alright then, good job, clown. Now go sleep. After knocking the clown out with a sharp strike to the back of his head, Kirishima turned his attention to the bear, whose bloodshot eyes darted around in fury. The beast had grown even larger, its primal rage now fully unleashed. It dropped to all fours and charged at Kirishima with its colossal bulk. With nimble, springy footwork, Kirishima made a wide turn to evade the charge. Good thing I optimized my footwork to match my enhanced strength. Realizing that his ever-improving physical prowess rendered his old footwork obsolete, he had trained himself to widen his stance while maintaining perfect balance. Now, his movements ranged seamlessly from a normal human stride to stride spanning over 10 meters with delicate precision. The wall, already battered by repeated heavy blows, finally crumbled completely as the bear slammed into it with its entire body. The creature burst through the rising dust and lunged at Kirishima once again. For a moment, as Kirishima prepared to dodge as before, he hesitated. This is bad. I can't evade it now. Earlier, when the bear had charged, a wall had been positioned behind him. But now, behind Kirishima stood people. Stepping aside would mean the bear would trample them indiscriminately. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Kirishima resolved that he had to stop the beast. Well, this isn't so bad after all, he mused. In that instant, it dawned on him that this was what a true hero's fight was all about. It wasn't merely about killing or being killed. It was about fighting for something greater than efficiency. There are battles where, even with the inevitable losses, one simply cannot back down. Kirishima chuckled at the thought, experiencing for the first time a battle fought to protect others. Though a heavy burden seemed to settle on his shoulders, it felt oddly invigorating. A surge of fierce exhilaration coursed through his veins, electrifying his entire body. Feeling the palpable warning of danger searing down his spine, he steeled himself to confront the beast head-on. The massive disparity in weight, the gleaming sharp teeth, the berserk momentum, all of it was inconsequential. He would trust only the strength, technique, and indomitable spirit honed through years of hard-fought training. Come on, teddy bear, let's settle once and for all who is the true friend of children. Grah! His heart pounded furiously as he channeled all his strength through his body. With a lowered stance, his legs drilled into the ground with tremendous force. His rigid, steel-like back maintained his balance as he charged headlong at the beast. He pulled his chin in, rounded his shoulders, and barreled straight toward the creature's front. Maybe I should have learned some proper close combat techniques. Just before impact, Kirishima regretted never having trained specifically to absorb heavy blows. But that regret was fleeting. Soon, a massive shockwave swept over the gathering. People filming and snapping photos collapsed under the force of the impact. The sheer momentum of that colossal charge reverberated through every fiber of his being. Gritting his teeth, Kirishima halted the beast and drove an uppercut into it with all his might. Gwoo! The bear staggered backwards several paces, visibly stunned by the blow. Without hesitation, Kirishima surged after it. He brought the speeding creature to a sudden halt, absorbing the recoil as he planted his foot into the shattered floor. The rapid deceleration sent his body reeling backward, only to be redirected by a twist in his torso. The power channeled through his shoulders cascaded down his punching arm and slammed into the bear's head like a cannonball. With a resounding boom, the bear's eyes rolled back and it crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Seems I'm truly the friend of children after all. Your training was lacking. Keep at it, teddy bear. We may never meet again, but if we do, try to be cuter next time. Surveying the fallen bear, now completely out cold, Kirishima muttered irreverent words before deactivating his hardening. Before he knew it, a crowd had gathered in a wide circle around him and the beast, carefully keeping their distance. Narrowing his eyes, he thought, aren't these people being recklessly careless? If this had been All Might's doing, then the people of this world were far too blasé about villains. Despite the fact that such beings could kill them at any moment, they assumed a hero would appear in the nick of time. That naive complacency reminded him of a small, pampered animal born and raised in a zoo, never once hunted by a predator. In any case, Kirishima left the bear where it lay and turned his attention to the unconscious clown, as well as Mio and Inoue, roughly hoisting the clown onto the bear's inert form. He then slung the two girls over his shoulders when Yui rushed forward. "Big brother, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Do you really think guys like that can beat me? Are you hurt anywhere?" "No, you saved me, big brother." "Thank you. Don't mention it." "Of course I did." Kirishima gently patted the tearful Yui to soothe her, while he pondered how best to handle the two who had yet to regain consciousness. Just then, a hero along with police officers pushed through the crowd and stepped forward. Reporters, clutching large cameras, also converged on the scene. "Hey, are you all alright?" "Ah yes, I'm fine, but these two haven't come to yet. They were hit by a mental quirk." "I see. We'll need to get them to the hospital right away." After a brief discussion with the officer in charge, Kirishima handed the two over to the arriving rescue team. Soon after, a figure wearing a hero costume approached and addressed him. The man sported a penguin mask, yet his voice carried an unexpected gravitas. "Did you take down both of these villains by yourself?" "Yes. I see. You're certainly strong. But you're not a hero, are you?" "Ah yes. I'm a student at Mustafu Middle School in Chiba." "A middle schooler? Ha! Catching villains at that age is impressive. Still, even with such confidence, you should have called a hero and waited."
Oh, I'm sorry.
"Look, I might sound like an old man arriving late and lecturing you, but social procedures exist for a reason. Power wielded without social consensus is dangerous in itself."
Ah,
I guess I got too worked up thinking my little sibling might be in danger. I'm sorry again. Yes, still good work. That was manly. Don't let today's events get you down. I'm not endorsing your methods, but you should stand tall and earn your hero license properly. You're still young, and the circumstances were somewhat unavoidable, so I doubt anyone will hold you accountable. But if something like this happens again, try to call a hero first. They may seem unreliable at times, but they're doing their best. Yes, don't worry about your companions. They'll likely receive top-notch treatment. Mental quirks that cause permanent damage haven't really been seen yet, so there's no need for panic. Understood. Thank you. Good. I hope next time we meet under better circumstances. Judging by your skills, you're aiming for UA2, right? Looks like you'll be a fine junior hero someday. The man patted Kirishima on the shoulder and urged him to straighten up. After all, he had saved lives. Watching him stroll off toward the police with a chuckle, Kirishima's expression shifted to one of keen interest. Maybe it's because he's young? Not as rigid as I expected. If he keeps this up, things might change. He's surprisingly flexible, even mature for his age. Having weathered the worst of it, Kirishima glanced over at Mio and Inoue being loaded into an ambulance. At that very moment, reporters, eager for a word with the hero, swarmed in. With microphones thrust at him and flashes popping all around, Kirishima shielded Yui's face and did his best to keep a neutral expression. From his previous encounters with the media, he knew better than to make enemies out of the press without reason. Kirishima's arduous day was far from over. The ordeals following the fight would prove even more challenging than the battle itself. In his previous life, Kirishima had always attracted attention. At the very least, that had been true ever since he turned pro and became a world champion. In Atlanta, he was practically the only world champion around, as well as one of the rare 5-weight lineal champions in the world. It was only natural, then, that paparazzi trailed him wherever he went. After a long time away from the spotlight, Kirishima felt that familiar buzz once again. "Kirishima, What did it feel like to rush into a house with a villain inside? Weren't you scared? Most people would have run. Another asked. Did you ever think about calling a hero? The reporters, who had somehow learned his name and even followed him to the hospital for a checkup, were even more numerous than they had been at Disneyland. They swarmed him without hesitation, bombarding him with questions from every direction. Kirishima could feel his stomach nodding with each inquiry. 15 years into his new life, he was no stranger to the press's relentless aggression. Drawing on his past experience, however, he managed to answer as gracefully as possible. He had even instructed Yui to stay out of sight until the interviews were over so as not to draw unwanted attention to the true victim. When I rushed at the villain, I wasn't thinking straight. I was in such a hurry that I didn't even consider calling a hero. My body moved on instinct. Of course, I was scared, but not of the villain. I was terrified that I might be too late to save my sister and my friend. Honestly, the thought of taking on a villain got my heart racing. But there's no need to mention that. It was inevitable that the media would turn this into a big story. So, Kirishima decided to at least cultivate a positive image by handling the reporters as gently as possible. Even if his slightly curt manner could be excused as the reaction of a teenager who had just survived a major ordeal, he knew all too well that the world was full of people whose character was rotten even if they weren't villains. Countless fallen celebrities were living proof of how troublesome a vengeful reporter could be. Of course, when the reporters swarmed to the hospital like hyenas on rotten meat, leaving the clearly exhausted victim Kirishima with little chance to rest, he couldn't really be said to consider them proper journalists. Yui, Kirishima, are you all right? Oh no, came the reply. As he fielded questions, Kirishima spotted director Uyama pushing his way through the crowd and stepping into view. He pressed a hand to his forehead in exasperation. He had tried to keep ordinary bystanders out of the limelight. Now Uyama had upended those plans by showing his face. What was he supposed to do now? Since things had already taken this turn, Kirishima decided to use the opportunity to promote Uyama's dojo and martial art. Director, over here. Huh? You're safe. But where's Yui? I told Yui to stay hidden until the interviews were over so the reporters wouldn't notice her. I'd hoped the hospital would clear these people out, but it doesn't seem like they plan to do that. I was actually hoping you'd show up later as well, Director. But now that you've caught their attention, why not give your dojo a little publicity? Huh? Kirishima pulled Uyama into a quick, whispered embrace. The reporters eagerly snapped photos of the moment, certain that this touching display would soon make headlines. Shortly afterward, Kirishima credited his diligent martial arts training for his victory over the villain. He lavished praise on Uyama. Although Uyama appeared somewhat flustered by the unexpected turn of events, the reporters hardly cared. Their sole focus was on securing content that would rake in clicks. After a little over an hour, the press finally began to disperse. With a sigh, Kirishima led Uyama to a side room. Dad! Yui! Let me check you over. Are you hurt anywhere? My daughter, you must have been terrified. I was a little scared, but I survived because my brother came so quickly. After watching the heartwarming reunion, Kirishima headed upstairs to see Mio and Inoue. Although the tests had shown no serious issues for the mother and daughter, they had decided to remain under observation for the day. Kirishima, along with Yui and Uyama's family, knocked on the hospital room door. Evidently well off, the pair were sharing a private room for two. When the door opened at their invitation, they found a sturdy, dignified man with Mio and her mother inside. The man sprang to his feet and extended his hand. Nice to meet you. I'm Mio's father. Hello.
I'm Kirishima Eiro.
Thank you. I heard you protected my wife and daughter. If it hadn't been for you, no sooner had they exchanged greetings than the man bowed deeply. Kirishima was visibly taken aback. After living 15 years as a Japanese man, he found it deeply uncomfortable to see an adult bow so low. Hastily, he straightened the man and said, "No, please stand up. I did only what anyone should do. Honestly, it's a bit embarrassing for me. Even so, without you, who knows what might have happened to Mio and Akane. The thought alone makes me shudder." Kirishima struggled to manage the man's relentless gratitude without looking awkward. When he glanced toward Mio and her mother, they offered only gentle smiles. "Honey, that's enough. You should leave some room for us to express our thanks, too." "Ah, was I overdoing it? Then let me say it properly. Kirishima, thank you so much for saving Yui and me. I won't ever forget this." "Me too. I'll never forget that you saved Mio. If you ever need anything, just call. I'll come running as fast as I can." Overwhelmed by the cascade of gratitude, Kirishima scratched his cheek in mild embarrassment. Having moved quickly to protect Yui, he now felt oddly self-conscious about receiving thanks in return. At that moment, Uyama stepped forward. "Hello, I'm Yui's father, Uyama Tadayoshi. I'm sorry that this happened while you were out with my daughter and Kirishima today." "Not at all. Yui and Kirishima were already headed to Disneyland. In fact, having both of them there meant extra protection." "That's right. Kirishima saved us too. But the police officer said that Yui was the one protecting us before he arrived." "No, I just got lucky that the clown didn't use his quirk on me. I didn't really do anything." When the gratitude shifted toward Yui, she looked flustered and tried to downplay it. "No, Yui really did protect us. The villain said so too. He even mentioned that he shouldn't have just stood by while Yui held us back." "That's not true." "It is true. Yui was like a hero today, even though I didn't see it myself." Everyone beamed at Yui as she blushed and fidgeted with embarrassment. "Yui, even though today's plans got a bit derailed, let's go to Disneyland together again sometime." "Yeah, I'd like that. And next time we'll start with Pirates of the Caribbean, right?" "Of course." The two children exchanged shy smiles, and the adults finally began to feel as though the chaotic, dangerous day was drawing to a close. "Kirishima, here's my contact information. Please take it. If you ever need help, don't hesitate to call. I promise I'll do everything I can to assist." I didn't do it expecting anything in return anyway. You're still young, Kirishima. In situations like these, it's best to accept help. You never know what life might throw at you. While our family might not be able to help you catch villains, we can certainly help if you run into other kinds of trouble. So please take it. The Inoue family will always be a strong supporter of you. Right, honey? Huh? Oh, right. Of course. We should support the friend who saved my wife and daughter. If you put it that way. Kirishima accepted the business card Mio's father offered with polite gratitude. Printed on it were the name of a renowned company he recognized, and the name Inoue Takahashi. "This is my direct line. If you ever need help, please call without hesitation. Hey, save my number too." Kirishima entered his number into Mio's phone as she held it out, then scratched his chin in mild amusement. The overwhelming generosity was a bit much to take, but seeing everyone smile also filled him with pride. If he hadn't subdued the villain as soon as he recognized the danger, he might never have witnessed a moment like this. It reminded him all over again that he had protected people. Meanwhile, Akane had her own thoughts. She hadn't seen Kirishima fight with her own eyes, but at only 15 he had taken down a villain with a powerful mental quirk, paired with another who possessed a large and strong heteromorphic quirk. The kid was clearly destined for greatness. Offering him her contact information was not only a gesture of gratitude, but also an investment in the future. Building a connection with someone who might grow into a top 10 hero was an opportunity not to be missed. "I'm sure you both had a rough day too, and we probably overstayed our welcome," someone observed. "Oh, not at all. If you're part of Kirishima and Yui's family, you can stay as long as you like," replied another. "No, really, you should get some rest. We'll be on our way now." "Ah, Then I'll be in touch later. I also have something I need to discuss with Yui's father. Something with me? Understood. I'll see you later then, we'd better get going too. Yes, please take care. Kirishima, thank you again for saving Yui today. Not at all. As I've said, it was only natural. Until next time, goodbye. Goodbye. After exchanging farewells and leaving the hospital room, Kirishima sighed deeply. Bro, what's wrong? It's just awkward. I still don't know how to handle people who offer such one-sided kindness. Just do what feels right. That's exactly why it's so hard. Honestly, dealing with villains who show their hostility is easier. You can just beat them up. Honestly, I've always known you were a bit of an oddball ever since you started training in martial arts, but you really are something else. If you'd known how odd I am, you might have helped me out a little more. The one who helped those people was you, and the one receiving their thanks is also you. What exactly do you expect me to do? To say that what you did was no big deal would only diminish the value of the people you saved. Now that I think about it, you're right. You little brat. Usually you act like a slick guy in his 40s, but in moments like this you really do act your age. Do I really look 40? No. You're handsome and cool. You look more like you're in your 30s. Hey now. Kirishima chuckled at Yui's ambiguous remark, unsure whether it was a compliment or a tease. The three of them eventually left the hospital and headed home in Uyuma's old, worn car. Seated in that creaking vehicle, Kirishima felt like a young man returning to his beloved hometown after a long, harrowing journey. A song he had cherished in his previous life drifted into his mind, and he began humming softly. Country roads, take me home, to the place I belong. West Virginia. Bro, what song is that? And where on earth is West Virginia? It's a tune about a homesick man longing for home. West Virginia is a region in the United States. After going through today, it just came to mind. The melody is nice, isn't it? Yeah. There's something comforting about it. In truth, John Denver, the singer of the song, was not from West Virginia at all, but what did that matter? When a song is good, that's all that counts. As Kirishima's difficult day faded away, the gentle strains of the melody filled the car, carrying him quietly into the night. The old door swung open smoothly. Kirishima turned at the doorway, casually dressed with a duffel bag over his shoulder. Familiar faces greeted him, Yui and Uyuma. Thank you for everything. I learned so much from you, coach. And Yui was adorable too, one said. Haha, I think the two of us owed you more. I learned plenty while teaching you, and not to mention you kept Yui safe, replied the other. Right. Ever since I met you, big brother, I feel like I've changed completely. I even made some friends. Plus, Mio and I became really close. You looked out for me too, Yui added. Seeing Yui clench her fists and meet his eyes, Kirishima smiled softly. In truth, a cute child was always a delight. You're charming and kind, so you'd have made friends on your own in no time. And as far as protecting you goes, let's just call that a job well done. I think I did pretty well myself. Haha. No, I'm not cute. Besides, before, I couldn't even bring myself to make friends, Yui protested. When you've got both the looks and the warm personality, people naturally gravitate toward you. Sure, you tended to keep away from the other kids, but eventually you'll find your circle. And yes, you truly are adorable. Claiming otherwise would be downright misleading, Kirishima teased. Gently ruffling Yui's hair, Kirishima chuckled. Yui's cheeks flushed a deep red as she fidgeted with her hands. After a moment's hesitation, as if gathering her thoughts, she finally spoke. Big brother, could you stay with me a bit longer? Nope. I've already postponed my schedule by a day. Even though I built some extra time into this trip, everything's planned out, so I really can't linger. Believe me, I'd love to stay longer if I could, Kirishima said firmly. Yui was endearing, Uyama was a good person, and learning karate had been enjoyable. But this trip had been meticulously planned for him to expand his martial arts foundation. In fact, he had even set aside an extra day to take Yui to Disneyland, since she was so cute and had never experienced an amusement park before. He simply couldn't afford to waste any more time in Tokyo. Kirishima smiled at Yui's downcast expression. Come on now, why the long face? It's not as if I'm sending you off forever. Like I mentioned, my place is in Chiba just next door. I'll be stopping by all the time, so there's no need for that gloomy look. Really? You'll be here a lot? But why? At the sight of Yui brightening up, Kirishima stifled a laugh. After spending a week together, he'd noticed that although she ate well, her height hadn't budged much. She looked hardly older than 10. Moreover, her perpetually youthful face made it all the more amusing to see her shift from gloomy to radiant in an instant. Kirishima planned to visit often, even after his trip ended and he returned home. Because you're cute, he said with a grin. Eh? Yui's ears turned bright red at his teasing. Whenever she felt embarrassed or had done something wrong, her ears always flushed red. And truly, there was no denying her cuteness. I'm just kidding. But hey, you're cute, and you learned boxing from me, right? Since you don't have another place to study it, you better come by more often. I can't see you every day 'cause of school, but I'll make sure to check in as often as possible. Oh, so you're going to keep teaching me boxing? Of course. Just 5 days of training isn't enough to master my style. I mix in a little karate with my own techniques so I can progress pretty quickly. You, on the other hand, have to rebuild your entire style from scratch. I have my studies too, so I can't meet you daily, but I'll come around whenever I can. Kirishima was determined to truly mentor Yui. He had taught kids like Midoriya, Bakugo, and Ashido various things from a young age, yet Yui was different from them. Midoriya and Bakugo were so far away that he only helped by setting up workout plans and checking in on their progress, never actually instructing them in martial arts. In that sense, he felt he was more like a strength and conditioning coach for them. Even though he wasn't their full-time mentor, it still felt incomplete. With Ashido, he had taught a few martial arts moves gradually, but her focus was always on her own quirk, which was exceedingly powerful. To prevent her from accidentally harming others, and to boost her offense when facing tougher opponents, she needed to concentrate on her quirk. Yui, however, was much like Kirishima. I may be young, but I consider you my mentor, he declared. I have a responsibility to guide you, to help you become stronger and steer you away from the wrong path. I never took teaching boxing lightly, no matter what you might think. I'm your disciple? Yui asked in wonder. Yes. And if you're okay with it, then so be it. No. I like it. I want to be your disciple. For Yui, whose quirk relied solely on physical prowess, martial arts were essential. Compared to Kirishima's, hardening, it wasn't yet clear how to best develop her techniques. Ultimately, Yui had to commit everything to her training, just as Kirishima had committed his life to martial arts because of his own quirk. This shared path deepened the bond between them. Besides being kind and diligent, Yui carried her own principles with a confidence rare for her age, qualities that made her utterly endearing in Kirishima's eyes. In the end, Kirishima resolved to consider Yui not just as a student, but as the first disciple he had ever taken, combining his past and present lives. While patting Yui's head as she hugged him, he mused that he was beginning to grasp the meaning of the third joy of a true gentleman. Whoa there, you're way too light. I might have to feed you more. And it looks like I ended up snatching your disciple right from under you. Coach, he joked. I'm going to eat a lot, Yui exclaimed. If it were some random kid, I'd be worried. But with you, I know you've got it together. Watching you these past few days, I've seen you're more capable than I expected. Genius types usually struggle when it comes to teaching, but you're different. Have you taught before? Well, I did teach a friend from childhood, but nothing in depth, he admitted. Is that so? You really do have a knack for teaching. You seem to have it all, observed the other. Haha, even if I have a lot, there's always room for improvement. Oh, now that I think of it, Yui, would you like to come to my place during winter break? Of course, I'll have to get Coach's permission first. Kirishima figured that since he had been indebted to Yui and her coach over the summer, inviting her over in winter wasn't such a bad idea. He would need his parents' approval, but they'd often said that his maturity made raising him less fun, so they might actually be pleased. They even mentioned how nice it would be to have a daughter, so a cute, kind girl like Yui would surely be welcome. Really? I can go to your house? Dad, is that okay? Yui asked. If it's Kirishima's house, then sure, but wouldn't that be a bit much? Her dad responded. It'll be fine. One little kid staying over won't be a burden, she insisted. I'm not a little kid. Kirishima patted Yui's head as she protested. Well, since there are still about 5 months left, we'll talk about that later. For now, I have to be off. All right, just be careful out there. I hope this trip turns out to be everything you want it to be, she said. Big brother, please come back safely. Don't get hurt. Got it. If time permits on the return trip, I'll drop by. So practice hard like I showed you, and don't forget to send me your videos every day. Okay, I'll work hard. All right, I'm really off now. Sorry for the long goodbye. Haha. Kirishima bid farewell to both of them and stepped out through the old door. The familiar alley greeted him warmly. With plenty of time before his scheduled train, Kirishima strolled leisurely. After a few steps, his phone buzzed with a new line message. It was Ashido. Ijiro, my dad showed me an online news article this morning. It's so weird. There's someone who looks exactly like you and even shares your name. Kirishima couldn't tell if she was teasing him or not. Ashido wasn't a foolish girl, so it was probably the former. If someone looks exactly like me and has the same name, then it must be me. I can guess what you saw, he replied. No sooner had he sent his message than Ashido called him. You idiot, Ijiro. What on earth were you doing? You said you were going to learn martial arts, and now you're out there fighting a villain? And why did you go to Disneyland by yourself? You said no when I asked to come along last time. Could you ask one thing at a time? First, fighting that villain was unavoidable. I had someone to protect. And as for going to Disneyland, I didn't go alone. I went with the coach's daughter. The coach's daughter? Not entirely sure whether to be irritated by the edge in Ashido's voice or not. Kirishima replied calmly. Yeah, Yui, the 12-year-old kid. She'd never been to Disneyland before, so I went there with her friend and her friend's mom. Everything else is just as you saw in the article. Really? So it's okay? Or maybe not. I mean, a 3-year difference sounds a bit risky. What are you even saying? You dummy, he chided. Kirishima playfully scolded Ashido for her nonsense. The two bickered for a while before Ashido finally admitted how worried she had been. You have no idea how shocked I was when I saw that news this morning. It reminded me of our trip when you got hurt at 5. You even promised your mom you'd avoid danger. What a liar. I do feel bad about Mom. But what could I do? It was unavoidable. And I didn't even get a scratch. So don't worry. Kirishima reassured her as he continued walking. After steering the conversation away from sensitive topics, he listened as Ashido filled him in on her recent life, complaining about disliking studies, grumbling about how hot training was and such. In his past life, he might have been deeply affected by such complaints, but after over 10 years, they no longer bothered him as much. After a long conversation and walk, Kirishima soon found himself in front of Tokyo Station. I've arrived at Tokyo Station. Let's catch up later, he messaged. Okay, Ijiro, from now on, just stay away from anything dangerous and have a good trip, Ashido advised. Yeah, he replied. After hanging up, Kirishima glanced at his watch. There were still 3 hours before his train arrived. Having purposely come early, He considered popping into a cafe to pass the time. Just then, he sensed someone approaching from behind. "Oh, Ms. Samayer." "Hello," a voice greeted. "Fancy meeting you here, Kirishima." "It's nice to see you," came the reply from Samayer, who still wore that inscrutable expression and sharp suit. "Are you here on assignment again? I mean, since you're at the station," he inquired. I'm not catching a train." "Where are you headed, Kirishima?" she asked. "I'm off to Shizuoka today. I found out my train isn't for another 3 hours, so I'm just musing over what to do with the time." "I see," Samayer murmured, her face clouding with thought. Kirishima found it odd to see the typically ice-cold Samayer looking so troubled, but he waited quietly. Usually, there was no need to break the silence first. After all, he himself disliked interruptions when deep in thought. "Then, Kirishima, could you spare maybe 30 minutes to an hour?" she asked. "I've got time, but what is it about?" he replied, half wondering if she was trying to seduce him. Samayer's face remained as unreadable as ever. No way, she's not the type to go after a minor. Even if I am rather handsome, Kirishima thought. The absurdity of his own musings made him smile inwardly. He knew he was attractive, but hardly in a way that enchanted every onlooker. When it came to physical prowess, he had no rival, however. "Kirishima, last time you mentioned you wanted to be a hero, right?" she asked. "Yes. Honestly, almost everyone my age dreams of being a hero," he admitted. "But you're not like those kids who only vaguely fantasize about it. Your physique says it all. And the way you fought that villain to protect others. I only saw it once, but you even helped me out last time even though it was a hassle," Samayer recalled. "That was just because he irritated me," Kirishima thought, a slight flush of embarrassment coloring his cheeks at the memory of his earlier irritation. "I'm actually on my way to interview someone right now. Honestly, even if you came with me, there wouldn't be much for you to do. I'm inviting you because I thought it might benefit you. It's not far, a 5-minute walk from the Yesu exit," she explained. "Who exactly are you going to see that you describe it like that?" he asked. "That's a bit hard to say right now. Even if I told you, you might not understand," Samayer replied evasively. He paused, pondering the odd gravity with which this interview was being treated. The person she intended to meet was clearly no ordinary individual. Noticing his contemplation, she continued, "To be honest, I'm not entirely sure it's right to have you accompany me. Part of me wants to brush this off, wish you a good trip, and part ways immediately. I worry that what you hear might be harsh, even inducing anger or despair. So be prepared for whatever comes." "If you put it that way, then of course I'll come along," Kirishima said. I don't know who I'll be meeting or what I'll hear, but I'm the kind of person who believes every experience can contribute to who I am. So I really want to meet this person, Samayer." She regarded him with a complex expression before setting her jaw. "All right then, let's move out now." "Yes," he replied. Following Samayer as she led the way, Kirishima noted how her slight figure seemed to tremble, a heavy, almost burdensome companionship settling between them. After emerging from the Yesu exit through a pristine underground passage, the two of them strolled for about 5 minutes until they reached a nearby park. People were ambling along the paths and basking in the sunlight. Without hesitation, Samayer headed straight for a secluded corner of the park. There, a man in a loose left-sleeved shirt was gazing downward at the ground. She approached him and said, "Hello, I'm Samayer, the one who visited you before. I've come back as promised." He remained silent, as if he hadn't heard her. As usual, Kirishima scrutinized the man. The man's grimy clothes and disheveled hair immediately caught the eye. His matted hair obscured his face, leaving his features barely visible. From afar, one could note that the left side of his long-sleeved shirt hung loosely from his shoulder. He looked every bit the stereotypical homeless man.
Kota.
It's me, Samayer. We met before, remember? Only then did he slowly lift his head. The shadows of heavy, dark circles framed his desolate eyes. In a languid, listless tone, he spoke as if he might collapse into the ground at any moment. The sun. Pardon. You're blocking the sunlight. Step aside a bit. Startled, Samayer quickly shifted to the side. Squinting against the glare, he gradually turned his head toward Samayer and said, "Right, Samayer. I remember now. You barged in, exchanged a few words, and promised to return. Didn't you? What does a reporter like you want with a guy like me? There isn't much of worth here. I didn't come solely for an article. More importantly, have you eaten? Last time you mentioned you hadn't eaten for 2 days. If you're short on cash, I can buy you a meal. No need. I've got money too. And have I eaten? No, I simply can't. Food just won't go down. Yet, this damn life of mine is so stubborn that even starvation eventually becomes bearable. Ah, damn it. There isn't a single thing about this miserable body that I care for." His voice was dry and desolate. Then he added in a tone laced with bitterness, "Why do you keep bothering a nobody like me? Are you after whatever cash I might still have? Not at all. I just came to let you know about your situation and to offer help. Spare me the nonsense. It's not about money, and certainly not that ridiculous line you just recited. So tell me, what is it? Do you want to sleep with me? Is your desire off the charts? Or do you get some twisted satisfaction from demeaning a wretched, pitiful man?" At those words, Samayer couldn't help but wince. Kirishima was inwardly repulsed by the man's crude tone, yet he remained silent, for Samayer, too, had been unusually quiet, as if holding back for some reason. "Please don't say such things. I heard you have a family, Mr. Kota. You shouldn't speak to someone barely old enough to be your daughter like that." Kirishima thought Sumayer's comment was unnecessary. If he were the type to apologize when confronted, he wouldn't have made such lewd remarks in the first place. Yet his reaction surprised everyone. "Daughter? You said daughter? How many years has it been now?"
Ah, Eri.
"I'm sorry.
I'm truly sorry.
It was all my fault. I shouldn't have done any of it. I should never have been a hero. It's all on me." Covering his face with both hands, he muttered incoherently. Kirishima furrowed his brow as he listened, piecing together the painful context. Even so, Samayer did not appear shocked by his sudden panic. Grabbing his shoulders, she shouted, "Kota!
Kota.
Snap out of it." Despite Sumayer's forceful grip, he continued babbling with his face hidden for a few agonizing moments before finally regaining composure. After wiping his face, he resumed his former tone. "Now that I'm back to normal, stop shaking me. Don't pick on an old man who's lost all his strength." "Are you all right?" Receiving Sumayer's worried look, he replied flatly, "I'm fine, so quit asking. What do you want to know? I'll give you a rough answer, just make it quick and then leave. And what's with that kid behind you? He still looks like a child. Tell him to go somewhere else. Even in this state, I can tell what's fit for young ears and what isn't. Normally, when someone claims they're not a kid, there's some truth in it. But I'm not so young that I can't understand you. So, speak your mind. You're definitely too young to grasp what I'm about to say. No, perhaps you should hear it after all. Fine. Since it's come to this, listen carefully, kid. You want to be a hero too, don't you? For now, yes. These days, every Tom, Dick, and Harry fancies themselves a hero. What's so great about it? Television's spoiled all the kids. I'm not trying to be a hero because of TV." In a voice heavy with emptiness, he muttered his discontent, and Kirishima felt his mood sink further as he observed him. At first glance, the man resembled a spent remnant, as deflated as burned-out ash. Yet behind his eyes, Rage and hatred churned faintly but relentlessly. He snorted dismissively at Kirishima. "Humph, is it the internet or videos then? You're not even at an age to be spouting off about heroes from fairy tales. Whatever. What's the point of chatting with you? Just listen to what I've got to say. Once you hear it, you won't want to be a hero anymore. And if you do, then you're nothing but a fool." What followed was, in many ways, the classic tale of the fallen hero. He recalled that, in his youth, he had been a powerful hero, famous and popular in his own right. Righteous and capable, he had married young and built a warm, loving family. It had been a life with nothing lacking. That's what I once believed. Foolishly. Clutching his loose shoulder, he continued in a voice that seemed to emerge from deep within. My dedication to my work and my love for my family began to crumble over one small incident. In truth, it wasn't even a monumental event. He had set out, as always, to capture a villain and had simply failed. Though he had pitted the victims destined to suffer at the hands of that scoundrel, he could never have imagined that his own family would pay the ultimate price. All he had vowed was to catch the bastard next time and to comfort the sidekick who had faltered. And there was no next time. I was the idiot. I shouldn't have listened to that bastard's parting words about remembering my face. About a month had passed since he returned to his routine of patrolling and relentlessly tracking the criminal. One ordinary day, when he came home from work carrying his daughter's birthday cake, he was met instead by the ghastly remains of his family. His wife and daughter lay before him as lifeless corpses, their faces twisted in agony as if they had suffered until their final breath. Behind the bodies, the bastard stood grinning while licking the blood off his blade. A grotesque, mocking smile. I should have killed him then. I shouldn't have let him get away. Damn it! For a moment, a shock gripped him, as if his heart had turned to ice, but that swiftly gave way to a burst of furious rage as he lunged at the bastard. A brutal, life-and-death struggle ensued, and in the end, he failed to kill his foe. All he managed was to seize the bastard's right arm, even as he lost his own left arm from the shoulder down. As the criminal fled, he taunted, vowing never to forget him. After the bastard left the house, he clutched the mangled corpses of his wife and daughter and howled until his voice was hoarse. From that moment on, he pursued the bastard like a madman. He shut down his office and roamed the streets, determined to track him down. Though everyone warned him and pleaded for his safety, he simply could not stand idle. All his efforts were in vain. The bastard had been captured in another region by a different hero. For a man who had been waiting for the chance to exact vengeance, it was a devastating blow. He attended the trial one final time, screaming for the bastard's execution, only to be met with an unyielding verdict. The criminal was condemned to confinement in Tartarus. As he was dragged from the courtroom, he said something to me. I still cannot forget it. He claimed that the screams of my wife and daughter were delightful, that listening to them wail like pigs while calling for me was so utterly laughable he had no choice but to kill them. With grinding teeth, he spat out. And after that, everything just fell apart in the most mundane way possible. After saying so much, he dropped his head, exhausted. Looking at him, Kirishima suspected he might be suffering from PTSD. He had witnessed many such broken souls in his previous life. There were those who had endured the terror of battlefields, where every heartbeat was laden with tension. Those who had walked a tightrope between life and death, and those who had lost something irreplaceably precious. Individuals who should have been destined for glory instead found themselves crashing into the abyss, rolling in the dirt. One of Kirishima's few friends from his past had suffered this fate, too. Born into poverty, his friend had enlisted immediately after high school and was deployed to Iraq. Kirishima knew little of what became of him thereafter. Some said he spent time on the battlefield before finishing his service in Korea, or perhaps Japan. Kirishima later encountered him after discharge, during a match in another state. He had been sitting in a pitiful state along the route where Kirishima was working, and though Kirishima tried his best to help him recover, it was all in vain. One rainy day, his friend took his own life with a pistol. The man before him now bore an uncanny resemblance to that old friend, from his weary, crumbling appearance down to the intense emotions swirling in his eyes. "Hey kid, look at me right now. What do you see? You don't look very good." "Really? Then perhaps I'm doing better than I thought. I'm standing on the opposite side of damn heaven, and, fittingly enough, I've carved out a little slice of hell for myself. I don't even know when it all went wrong." Kirishima silently met the man's glare. He deserved a measure of respect. There was neither reason nor right for Kirishima to pity him. He would simply listen to what the man had to say. "I served the citizens. I bled for them, shouted for them, and fought for them. Then, one day, I woke up to find my left arm gone and my family murdered. Those wretched Public Safety Commission idiots never avenged them." Though his voice faltered, he suddenly roared, "All I ever wanted was to kill that bastard, but they wouldn't even grant me that one simple thing. The very people I protected, once I became a broken shell, they hurled stones at me. They treated me as nothing more than scrap metal. From the very start, I was nothing but a guard dog bred to fight for their benefit." As he unleashed his anguish like an injured lion, Kirishima felt a bitter taste settle in his mouth. In any human society, souls like his were destined to emerge. Perhaps his claim to have money wasn't entirely false. If he had been a true hero, he likely wouldn't have lacked resources. And he even mentioned that he once had a home. And yet, unable to bear the weight of his losses, he wandered as a homeless vagrant. Haunted by the moment his wife and daughter perished, he could never bring himself to spend his money and find solace. "I realized it far too late, kid. You want to be a hero? Just stop. It's not as glorious as you imagine." Kirishima met the man's gaze without a word. A gaze that sank into a dark abyss colliding with one set ablaze by fierce determination. "Thank you for the advice, Kota, but I'm still going to become a hero. I have my own dreams." "Is that so? Fine. Young people have their own paths, I suppose. Just chalk this up to the ramblings of a washed-up old man and move on." "I don't think it's nonsense at all. I've learned a lot from you. It's just that I have my own journey to complete. I doubt you'll ever need my help, but if you do, please contact me here." Kirishima scribbled his phone number and handed it over before stepping back. He scoffed, yet he didn't discard the slip of paper. After a while, as the conversation wound down, Samayer stepped forward with a few questions, which he answered patiently. When he finally dismissed them with an impatient wave, Samayer and Kirishima exchanged goodbyes and departed. He never once pleaded for their help. Kirishima and Samayer walked away under a heavy, solemn silence. After a thoughtful pause, Samayer asked cautiously, "Kirishima, are you all right?" Her brief question carried a world of meaning, and Kirishima replied evenly, "Yes, there's no reason for me not to be. I feel sorry for his plight, but there's nothing I can do. Still, do you really want to be a hero? Yes, he is who he is, and I am who I am. I've already steeled myself to risk losing something if that's what it takes." He didn't say anything about not being willing to risk losing those dear to him. Yet the calm determination in Kirishima's eyes betrayed a deep and unwavering conviction. And if a man aspires to be the strongest, he must be ready to protect those close to him. In that moment, Kirishima broke into a gentle smile. To him, life was a constant reminder that one could never have everything they desired. But this was his second chance at life. If fate had granted him an opportunity unlike any other, then surely he must chase a dream as singular and extraordinary as his own. Kirishima truly believed that he could achieve his ambitions without losing anyone dear to him. Samayer watched him, dazzled by his radiant smile and quiet strength. For a fleeting moment she worried that perhaps she might discourage his youthful resolve, but that concern soon proved unfounded. The man before her had found his center, a steadfast force guiding him through the world. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, her heart began to race. It felt as though she had become the first witness to the birth of a legend, walking side by side with Kirishima. In him, there was no trace of the dark shadow cast by a fallen hero, only the promise of a bright, unyielding future. The walk back to the company was quiet. The sound of Sumair's heels echoed through the still street. She found herself thinking about Kirishima, pure and intense. The boy she had brought along with little expectation had far exceeded her hopes. When she first offered him a chance, she hadn't given it much thought. It was merely a test to see what kind of boy could subdue a villain. After all, the world teemed with heroes wielding overwhelming power, yet what truly mattered was the character behind that power. Something was amiss in this world. There were more heroes than ever, but genuine heroes had become increasingly rare. No matter how hard one searched, it was nearly impossible to find someone pure, strong, and truly suited to the essence of heroism. Instead, they were little more than clowns seduced by wealth and fleeting popularity. Having a family may be a minor drawback, but that's true for most of them. Maybe only All Might is the exception. She hadn't expected much from the boy who had helped subdue a villain so effortlessly. Too many had disappointed her to allow even a spark of hope to survive, especially when he was someone she'd only met twice. The company had advised her to meet him, but honestly, it had seemed like a waste of time. So she had brought him along without hesitation, leaving the choice of whether to continue the journey in his hands. If Kirishima were to waver after taking Kota's advice, that would be acceptable too. Anyone who could crumble so easily was never meant to be a true hero. It was far better to quit early than to half-heartedly take on a role one couldn't live up to. Yet Kirishima proved to be much sturdier and stronger than she had anticipated. This is exciting. The mere thought of him quickened her heartbeat. Heroes aren't born, they're made. This was a maxim Sumair believed without a shred of doubt. In a modern world where almost everyone possessed a quirk, wielding great power was not hard to come by. Some even manifested terrifying strength from infancy, surpassing ordinary heroes. But did mere strength make one a hero? If power alone were enough, villains would be revered as heroes too. While power was important, even more crucial was the person wielding it. It wasn't enough to simply be powerful. A person had to be strong in character, and only by weathering life storms could one be forged into a true hero. In that sense, Kirishima's first test was a resounding success. Look forward to it, Kirishima. I'll help you every step of the way so you can become a hero. Of course, she still harbored her doubts. Kirishima had only taken his first tentative step, and there were countless obstacles ahead on his journey of growth. But Sumair was more than willing to provide those very challenges. After all, everyone at the company was just an ordinary person yearning for true heroes. A faint smile softened Sumair's usually stern features. At last, a light had found her. After getting off the train, Kirishima stretched. During the journey, he had briefly wondered why Sumair had taken him to see Kota and uttered those puzzling words after only 2 encounters. But he hadn't reached any concrete conclusion. He couldn't fathom why someone so sensible would act so unconventionally. He assumed she had her reasons. Kirishima didn't consider himself foolish, yet he never thought himself exceptionally clever either. Earning grades high enough to apply to UA, where only the top 0.18% succeeded, had been part of a process he'd already undergone in his previous life. There was no need to dwell on mysteries that defied explanation. After all, they weren't likely to lose contact, and he could always ask her another day. Meanwhile, curious eyes turned in his direction. With his imposing stature by Japanese standards, tall, muscular, yet sporting a youthful face, Kirishima usually caught attention. But today, it seemed he was drawing even more onlookers. Wait a minute. Could this be because of that article? No, that's absurd. It's probably just a few online write-ups. There's no way everyone would recognize me. I don't have some celebrity syndrome or anything. His past had taught him that being the center of attention was rarely a blessing. Of course, as he worked toward becoming a hero, public scrutiny would eventually be inevitable. But for now, he preferred to remain under the radar. Fame never seemed particularly appealing. While it might bring extra money, Kirishima had always believed that having just enough to live on was enough, and he had no desire to chase wealth. I arrived a bit early. I wonder when those two will show up. Ignoring the stares, Kirishima left the station and made his way confidently toward the meeting spot, a modest cafe near the station. Thanks to his close bond with the Bakugo and Midoriya families, formed after an eventful summer trip, Kirishima had visited Mustafu several times before. Each visit had led him to the same cafe where he often met the kids. He pushed open the small door and stepped inside to find the place relatively empty, a likely result of the weekday afternoon lull. Even among the few patrons, Midoriya's distinctive green hair and Bakugo's unruly, explosive style immediately caught the eye. "Oh, I arrived 30 minutes early, yet you're already here. Kirishima, long time no see. It's been 2 years since we last met in person. How have you been? So you made it, tall guy. And why drag Deku along, anyway?" Midoriya greeted him warmly, while Bakugo grumbled in his customary fashion. "Should I have met you both separately? We're here only for a short while. Might as well catch up all at once. It's summer break. We've got plenty of time. What's wrong with meeting one-on-one?" "Yeah, but time is precious." The boy who had first met him at age 5, who'd once crushed his pride, never ceased challenging Kirishima whenever they crossed paths. Of course, Kirishima had never lost to Bakugo. Bakugo's fighting instincts had honed with each encounter, yet Kirishima never stood still. Even after a string of defeats, Bakugo's stubborn declaration that he'd win next time charmed Kirishima. "Come on, Kakin. We've been friends since we were little, haven't we? Gah, who's your friend? Don't spout that mushy crap." Deku, Midoriya, now more composed than before, addressed Bakugo in a conciliatory tone. In some small way, both had been trampled by Kirishima so often that a sense of camaraderie had formed. They no longer appeared intimidated by Bakugo's bluster. Although his tone remained rough, it was a far cry from the feral outbursts of their early encounters. Once like a wild cat ready to scratch, Bakugo now simply hissed, his fur metaphorically bristling. "You two have great chemistry. You've known each other forever, even if I can't quite match that. You two? If you're just going to spout nonsense, I'm out. Haha, I really don't mind it at all." Midoriya's warm smile deepened the moment Bakugo looked as if he were about to storm off, only to be quickly calmed by his friend. Kirishima couldn't help but laugh at how their dynamic had evolved. Teasing Bakugo, witnessing his occasional bursts of anger, and seeing Midoriya subtly take his side. It was a familiar scene, one that brought him quiet satisfaction. "All right, let's get to the point. You've been training as I directed, right?" Well, Kirishima," Midoriya began hesitantly. Once, he had called him Ijiro until Ashido chided him, and ever since, he had reluctantly used Kirishima's name, but now he faltered. Bakugo, clearly exasperated by the hesitation, jumped in. "This guy hasn't been training much lately. Maybe he has, but not the way you told him to, tall guy. I heard he's been hitting the beach instead." I'll explain, Kakin. "It's just that I've been meeting with a master lately," Kirishima managed. "Oh? And he isn't some scam artist, is he?" "Absolutely not. He's definitely no scammer." "Well then, if you've really met a master, learning from him is what counts." Now that I think about it, it must have been around the time he met All Might. Midoriya's eyes shone with genuine admiration as he absorbed Kirishima's words. From childhood on, he'd always respected Kirishima's relentless approach to training. Ever since that unforgettable first encounter at age 5, Kirishima had meticulously overseen Bakugo and Midoriya's training, calling every day, or at least visiting in person once a month. And if either of them even hinted at giving up, he'd warn them that they might as well quit their dream of becoming heroes. Back then, he truly seemed like a force of nature. Their parents had been delighted, thinking that Midoriya had made a friend and was having fun. But deep down, Kirishima had no desire to return to those simpler days. So when Kirishima mentioned his new master, it struck a chord with Midoriya, even though the truth was, Kirishima already knew exactly who his master was. But wasn't All Might notoriously bad at teaching? So what kind of training are you doing now? Since I'll be staying with you for a couple of days, mind if I meet your master as well? Huh? Well, we're cleaning up trash on the beach right now. I'll check if it's all right for you to come see him, Midoriya replied. All right. Wait, are you staying at Deka's place? Yeah. Remember last time I crashed at your place? Your folks are nice and your house is comfy. But this time I'm planning to swing by this guy's place too. I already mentioned I'd be in Mustafu for at least 2 days, so you should have guessed I wasn't bunking at your place. TCH, my mom was all excited when she heard you were coming. Honestly, it's more peaceful without you around. What kind of remark is that? Don't talk about your mom like that, you little brat. Kirishima smacked Bakugo lightly on the head. Though he didn't use much force, the impact still stung, prompting Bakugo to clutch his head and shout, "What do you care if I call her that? I care because I'm your friend, because it's my duty to remind you. Besides, you're smart enough not to earn extra points by being unnecessarily rude." Gay! Bakugo tried to fume, but could only manage a low growl. Ever since they were 5, he had inexplicably shown a softer side when it came to Kirishima. Perhaps because Kirishima was almost always right, or simply because he was stronger. After all, Bakugo was the type who respected strength, no matter where it came from. If Midoriya isn't showing up for training, that must mean you're doing pretty well, right? We'll check on that later. I'm on top of it, and this time, I'm winning. No, we're not fighting this time. What? What do you mean? Tall guy, are you trying to score a win and then run away? What are you talking about? You should be graduating from mindless brawling by now. I'm so much stronger that a bare-knuckle fight with you wouldn't even be worth it. Besides, sparring with our quirks is tricky. I'm fine with casual training, but yours could use a bit more flair. Tisich? Fair enough. Bakugo ground his teeth before conceding with a shrug. Watching that relentless, competitive glint in his eyes, Kirishima couldn't help but grin. So, this time I'm just going to check your physical condition. Besides that, I'll be meeting your parents. There's no time to waste. I've got so much to learn on this trip. You? Still got things to learn. Bakugo replied with a deflated look. Ever since their first meeting at 5, this determined guy had never slowed his pace. Although Bakugo was no longer the helpless kid trembling before a villain, Kirishima was always several steps ahead. And perhaps that was exactly why Bakugo considered him a friend. All right then, shall we head out? I should at least say hello to Midoriya's mom while I'm here. Yeah, Mom will be delighted. Then why didn't we leave earlier? I'm scheduled to visit your parents tomorrow as well, so stop griping. When a beauty greets them, it's endearing. But when some squinty-eyed guy does it, it comes off creepy. When have I ever complained? You've been griping non-stop, Kakin. More than his impressive physique, which was obvious even through his clothes. It was the playful way Midoriya teased Bakugo that made Kirishima smile how much they had all grown. Back in their youth, tussling with Bakugo and exchanging a few witty remarks had been the perfect way to bond. And ever since, Kirishima had kept a close eye on them. The three of them left the cafe together and headed toward Midoriya's house. Since Bakugo's place was in the same neighborhood, they were headed in the same direction. You all came to my place 2 summers ago, and I visited your house the year before that, so it's been 3 years since I last saw your parents. How are they doing? They're fine. Mom's in good health. And ever since she met you when we were kids, she always says I seem brighter. She even keeps asking if you'll visit again. Haha. She's a bit quirky, isn't she? That's not her being quirky. It just means you're not exactly reliable. Is it? Huh? Is that what it means? Look at me. Even if I travel alone around Japan, my parents let me do it without fuss. You're only kids. It's natural to be a bit unreliable. After all, this is only your first life. First life? What do you mean? Are you on your second life or something? Bakugo clicked his tongue at Kirishima's bizarre remark. Though Kirishima usually spoke sense, every now and then he would spout something offbeat, enough to make Bakugo wonder if he really was living a second life. No comment on that. Bakugo, how are your parents? Kirishima had long since stopped worrying about how he spoke around these two. They weren't naive enough to truly believe he was on a second life, and even if they did, he trusted they wouldn't use it against him. My old man is as stubborn as ever, and my mom? She clings to me every day like I'm a stray. That's because you've got a rotten attitude. What did you say, punk? Be nicer to your parents, you rude little brat. You'll regret it when they're gone. Shut up. I can handle it myself. Honestly, fine, do what you want. Considering how your parents put up with your temper, they're saints. You really should be grateful to them. TCH. Anyway, sounds like they're doing well. Yeah, Kaken's parents are truly something else. What do you mean by that, you little brat? The three continued walking toward the house, bickering all the way. Kirishima teased Bakugo. Bakugo fumed, and Midoriya quietly sided with Kirishima. A familiar scene that, despite its rough exterior, held a comfortable warmth. The August sun blazed down on the three friends. Their figures moved together through the scorching air, a scene that felt both warmly familiar and reassuring. It had been a while since Midoriya had visited his home, yet it still exuded the same warm, comforting atmosphere as ever. This was in stark contrast to Bakugo's place. Unexpectedly large, spacious, and imbued with an air of sophistication. Although the apartment was typical, the decor unmistakably reflected its owner's character. Kirishima greeted Midoriya Inko with wide-eyed enthusiasm, his friendly smile lighting up the room. Unlike in the original tale, Inko now maintained the svelte figure of her youth, perhaps a testament to Midoriya's own newfound brightness. Hello. It's been such a long time. You seem even more beautiful than before, ma'am. Haha, he said. Oh my. Ijiro-chan, you've gotten even bigger since the last time I saw you. You've always been handsome, but now I really do have to crane my neck. I thought our Izuku had grown a lot too, yet he just can't compare to you, replied Inko. Mom, you can't compare him to me. He's been enormous since he was 5. It's not that I'm small. He's just grown too much, Midoriya teased. Kirishima shot Midoriya a sidelong glance at his mother's remark, noting that he now towered roughly 20 centimeters over him. At 193 centimeters, Kirishima had indeed grown considerably taller than depicted in the original story, when he'd been one of the shorter boys. Now he stood slightly above average. I've been tall since I was little, and Midoriya's grown a ton too. Haha. Even if his personality remains a bit immature, he's come a long way, Kirishima declared. Really? Even you act like a kid when you're with Kaken and me sometimes. Adults ought to see that side of you, Midoriya retorted. Listen, kid, I adjust to your pace. Would you really want me to act like some old fuddy-duddy? I'm not asking you to be a grumpy old man. I just wish you'd be a little more serious sometimes. Believe me, I'm serious enough. I simply don't need to be when I'm goofing around with you, Kirishima replied with a grin. Oh, come on. Ijiro-chan, you're supposed to be enjoying yourself too. So why the attitude? There, that's the spirit, just your age. It's good to see you still so full of life, he teased. Inko couldn't help but smile as she watched Kirishima nudge Izuku in a playful manner. The sight reminded her how worthwhile that trip they had taken a decade ago had been. Back then, after the devastating quirk assessment declared him quirkless, young Izuku had shrunk into himself, leaving her heartbroken. Every time she recalled the image of his wide, incredulous eyes reading the results, a pang of sadness hit her. However, after meeting Kirishima on that journey, everything had changed. Izuku had blossomed into a brighter, more optimistic boy. The once reclusive child, confined to his room watching hero videos, had begun venturing out, exercising, and even making friends thanks to Kirishima's frequent visits. He even got along with Bakugo. Though the battle with the villain had been shocking, it hadn't weighed him down. Inko felt deep gratitude toward Kirishima for risking it all to protect him and the others. Recently, when news of Izuku's quirk manifestation broke, she congratulated him with a smile in front of him. Even if her tears had flowed in secret, she was overwhelmed with joy that he was finally taking steps toward his dream, and relieved that all her past anxieties had turned out to be unfounded. "Ah, ma'am, where should I put my things?" Kirishima asked. "Honestly, I should have mentioned it sooner." "That must have been heavy," Inko replied. "Haha, no, it feels as light as a feather. Still, I thought I'd unpack before we chat," he said. Following Inko into a small room, Kirishima dropped his duffel bag. It turned out this room had once belonged to Izuku's father, which explained the bare furnishings. He'd have to pull out a futon if he wanted to sleep there. After a quick unpacking, Kirishima joined Midoriya in his room. A space awash with All Might posters, figures, and every imaginable piece of memorabilia. Some things never change. You're still an all-out All Might fan, Kirishima remarked. "Well, I might not speak for everyone, but to me, All Might is the epitome of cool," replied Midoriya. "Maybe not as passionately as you, but most people seem to agree. All Might is number one." "Not that I'm among them," said Kirishima. "Ijiro-chan, you've been like that since you were a kid," Midoriya reminded him. "If I had to choose a hero to really back, it'd be Endeavor. I can't say I'm well-versed in the others, and none capture my admiration quite like he does," Kirishima explained. "You're as consistent as ever. Still not a fan of All Might, huh?" "To be clear, it's not that I dislike All Might. I simply don't have strong feelings for him either," he clarified. "Really? I remember you saying you didn't like him when you were little," Midoriya probed. "That was a bit misleading. I meant I never developed a real fondness for him. Besides, he is extraordinary. A paragon of strength, justice, and tireless effort. I can't bring myself to despise someone like that," Kirishima responded coolly. Although Kirishima found a society that ran on a single heroic figure somewhat unsettling, there was no ill will toward All Might himself. How could anyone begrudge someone who did everything in their power as an individual? Sure, one might wish for a more strategic overhaul of society, but not everyone was born a visionary warrior destined to be a Zhuge Liang. As a citizen, I'm thankful to All Might. Thanks to him, I've grown up safely in a stable society. My parents are well, and friends like Ishido, Bakugo, and even you are thriving," he added. "Ijiro-chan, so you're not against All Might after all." "That's a relief," Midoriya said, half-jokingly. "Why would it be a relief that I don't hate him?" Kirishima countered. "Well, there's a reason," Midoriya began, only to be cut off as Kirishima clicked his tongue at his flustered friend. Despite his growth, Midoriya still blushed at criticism when sensitive topics were brought up. Perhaps he was extra pleased that, in a roundabout way, Kirishima didn't harbor any resentment toward All Might. After all, his own mentor was All Might. Lost in thought about how All Might must be these days, Kirishima decided to ask Midoriya about how he'd met his master. He wondered if the fateful encounters of the past had unfolded according to the original timeline, despite the changes in their lives. He recalled hearing that Bakugo had suffered greatly at the hands of the sludge villain. Yet true to form, Bakugo hadn't shared the full details with anyone, not even Midoriya. Midoriya, engrossed in tapping away on his phone, answered quickly, "Well, Kakin got attacked by the sludge villain, right? Yeah, I heard about it," Kirishima replied. "I rushed over to save him back then, though I didn't really manage to help," Midoriya admitted. "That's typical. With your build, you'd normally be more useful, if it hadn't been for the fact that the guy's body was practically liquid. No wonder Bakugo couldn't land a solid hit. Otherwise, he'd probably have torn that guy apart and dragged him around by his head," Kirishima teased. "Hearing you say that makes it sound like Kakin really would do that," Midoriya protested. "He's gotten better, but his temper is still all over the place. It's like he's gone from a raging mad dog to, well, a regular dog. Don't you think so?" "I'm not going to comment on that," Midoriya mumbled. "He's not even here, so why beat around the bush? Anyway, what happened next?" "Just as things were heating up, All Might showed up and rescued both Kakin and me. That's when I met my master. Apparently, he was impressed by what I did," Midoriya recalled. So your master just stood by and watched you almost get beaten up?" Kirishima asked, half in teasing reproach.
Vuvuha. No.
He said he arrived late and only saw it all afterward. Midoriya defended himself vehemently when Kirishima's words sounded like an attack on All Might. Knowing the full story, Kirishima understood that All Might had intervened at great personal risk. Still, he couldn't resist ribbing his friend a little. "If that were so, then it's all good. Why are you so taken aback? Honestly, if he were that kind of person, you wouldn't have taken him as your master anyway. After all, you don't just admire someone because of their strength." "I guess so? Oh, I just got a reply. He says you can come along too," Midoriya exclaimed as he read the message. "Really? Let's see. Then should we head out now?" "Huh? If we go now, we might be a bit early. I want to meet your mentor and see how much you've improved before watching you train. You're taller now, and your physique has changed. You're definitely not that frail kid you used to be. You thought I was that weak, did you? At 5 years old, you were unmistakably a weakling, and you remained fragile for a long time afterward." Observing Midoriya's training, Kirishima concluded that the kid simply lacked raw physical talent. Compared to Bakugo's rapid growth, Midoriya's progress had been rather ordinary. Yet, having seen plenty of folks in past lives who seemed doomed regardless of effort, Kirishima didn't view it entirely negatively. Improvement was improvement after all. Still, while his body might not be exceptional, Midoriya's mind was sharp. He approached battles with a logical strategy that often allowed him to outlast even Bakugo, whose style was raw instinct and fierce aggression. Come to think of it, how exactly does one for all work? Is it a percentage boost to the body? Or is it simply a cumulative force passed down from user to user? Kirishima's curiosity was piqued. None of what he'd seen so far had clarified that point. If it were the former, even a full 100% output from Midoriya would impose a severe penalty compared to All Might, unless his body continued to grow stronger. "So, shall we head out? It's been a while since we sparred," Kirishima suggested. "Yeah, it really has been too long," Midoriya agreed. "Tell me, are you confident you can win now? Now that you've got your quirk, you should be coming at me with winning in mind." I'm not sure I can win yet. Honestly, today I won't be able to use my quirk against you," Midoriya admitted. "Huh? Why not?" Only then did Kirishima realize he had jumped the gun. After all, when Midoriya first received One for All, he couldn't control it. Using it even in practice often meant breaking his own body. Sparring with that kind of risk was unthinkable. "I got my quirk later than most, so I still can't control it properly. Every time I use it, I end up seriously injuring myself," Midoriya explained. "Really? Well, that leaves us no choice. Today we'll keep it like last time. A 0.1% spar. Kirishima decided with a hint of a smile. But last time it was 0.05%. Why raise it? Because you've grown too. The proportion should naturally increase. Why ask something so obvious? Ugh. I'm still not confident at even the earlier level, Midoriya muttered. I thought you'd improved a lot. Come on. Show some boldness and tell me you can handle it. I'm not Kakin or Ijiro-chan. Midoriya murmured. Kirishima laughed as he watched his friend slump slightly. They say a person's nature hardly ever changes. Despite growing more confident, there was still an unmistakable fragility about Midoriya. Yet no matter how delicate he appeared, he was the sort of person who would charge into danger without a second thought, no matter who the adversary. That indefatigable spirit was quintessentially Midoriya, and Kirishima found it endearing. Patting Midoriya on the back a few times, Kirishima led him out the door. Outside, a sparring session that promised to ignite their youthful passion eagerly awaited them. When Kirishima arrived at the beach, he whistled at the sight of a stretch of sand half exposed by the retreating tide. Once all the trash was cleared away, the place would look nothing short of impressive. How did you even find a place like this? Once it's cleaned up, it's going to be amazing, one asked. Oh, no, my teacher showed me, Kirishima replied. Really? He actually discovered a spot like this and plans to use it as a training ground. Yeah. So what kind of training are you doing here? I'm clearing out all this trash, Kirishima explained. Clearing out trash? Not bad. But that can't be all, right? Right? I've been mixing it up with other drills, and some of the training you taught me, Kirishima. But why waste time on trash cleanup? Well, he said that the essence of being a hero is to serve others, and that this was my first step toward that. Midoriya felt a twinge of apprehension, worried that Kirishima might dismiss his efforts as trivial. Yet Kirishima found the effort remarkable. After all Might had held the #1 position for decades. For someone at his level to care even about something as small as beach cleanup was astonishing. It was a philosophy fundamentally different from his own relentless pursuit of power. Kirishima admired that natural heroism deeply. Oh, that's a great sentiment. So the whole beach used to be covered in trash. Yeah, I started about 4 months ago, but I've only managed to clear half of it. That's pretty fast, especially since you've been juggling other training as well. And you didn't even use your quirk. Hearing Kirishima's praise, Midoriya felt a strange mix of pride and unease. After all, Kirishima rarely offered compliments, though when he did, they came with precisely reasoned logic rather than empty platitudes. Indeed, he was known for convincing even those who dreaded his critiques to agree with him, even when they knew the consequences would be harsh. It was surprising, then, to hear Kirishima speak so highly of something as mundane as cleaning up the beach. Well, good. The beach is clean, and thanks to that, we've got a proper place to spar. Shall we get started? Yeah. Today, I'm definitely landing a hit, Midoriya declared. That might be tougher than last time, Kirishima teased. The two assumed their stances, facing each other at a comfortable distance. As always, Kirishima's posture was solid and impeccably precise, while Midoriya's stance still looked a bit awkward. Truth be told, Kirishima had intended to teach Midoriya boxing as well. Since he couldn't stay right beside him throughout the drill, he had only managed to cover the basics. Straight-line attacks like the 1-2 and some footwork. The problem was that when they met again a month later, Midoriya's form was a complete mess. Without constant correction, subtle deviations accumulated until his stance became bizarre. Kirishima had even gone so far as to instruct him to film his moves every day, reviewing the footage to correct his errors. Yet no matter how diligently he practiced, a month later he was right back where he started. He could mimic Kirishima's demonstrations well enough, so it wasn't a matter of lacking mirror neurons, but the root of the problem remained elusive. What perplexed him further was that Midoriya could flawlessly replicate All Might's movements, deepening the mystery. In the end, Kirishima concluded that Midoriya needed to develop his own fighting style. Rather than merely imitating others, he had to build a system centered on movements that resonated with him, even if that meant borrowing techniques from other martial arts. Otherwise, he was on track to become nothing more than another All Might clone. "All right, here I come. Kirishima, bring it on," Kirishima shot back. Midoriya charged without hesitation, launching a punch at his mentor. Though a boxer might be hampered on a sandy field, Kirishima navigated the uneven ground with ease, dodging Midoriya's attack. The punch, so plainly telegraphed, was nearly impossible to land even if one tried. "At this rate, nothing's changed from last time," Midoriya grumbled. "Wait a moment. I'll show you," Kirishima replied coolly. Dodging several more punches, Kirishima suddenly extended his hand and pushed Midoriya's head. It wasn't a hurtful blow, but it left an unmistakable sting of irritation. Midoriya winced yet continued his pursuit, his determination unshaken. The friendly duel soon turned into a chase, with Kirishima circling around as Midoriya pursued him. After evading yet another overly telegraphed punch, a flicker of annoyance crossed Kirishima's face. Of course, inventing a martial art was nearly impossible. Even those who had dedicated years to training rarely dared to create something new. Strictly speaking, Midoriya didn't need an entirely new martial art, just a personal fighting method that suited him. The problem was that there was no sign of any real progress. Exaggerated wind-ups, overly rigid movements, and feet seemingly glued to the earth. These were the hallmarks of his current style. It was hard to tell if he had found any room for improvement at all. As Kirishima watched Midoriya, his gaze lowered in quiet concentration. Midoriya's stance suddenly dropped while his left hand shot forward. His right hand, held back, waited patiently for its cue. "Damn." In a puzzled tone, Kirishima murmured as Midoriya hooked his left hand around Kirishima's own. Deciding to see where this led, Kirishima let Midoriya take the initiative. Midoriya pulled Kirishima's hand downward and swung his right arm. It was unexpected, but not forceful enough to land a hit. Kirishima simply twisted his waist and dodged it. In the next instant, Midoriya sprang upward and kicked toward Kirishima's face. Reacting swiftly, Kirishima pushed off the ground to evade the attack, feeling Midoriya's foot barely brush his hair. What did he mix into damn with that kick? Taekwondo? Capoeira? Well, that's not really what matters, he mused, a hint of admiration in his tone. It was a refreshingly creative attempt. Whether it suited the future wielder of One for All was another matter, but Kirishima was satisfied with the ingenuity behind it. With a pleased smile, he reached out and flicked Midoriya's forehead as the latter landed. Midoriya, whose balance had already been compromised once before by a similar blow from Bakugo, could only stagger in response. Kirishima had controlled the force carefully, without triggering his quirk, so Midoriya should have been able to take the hit. "All right, that's enough. Better than I expected. Clearly you've experimented with your techniques," Kirishima praised. "Yeah. I've been researching and trying different things. I'm not like you, Kirishima," Midoriya replied, a spark of defiant determination in his eyes. Midoriya refused to simply forget what Kirishima had taught. He was determined to master it through relentless practice and repetition. But the more he trained, the more he realized that he couldn't control his punches and footwork with the same millimeter precision as Kirishima. Their basic sense of spatial awareness and timing were simply worlds apart. If he couldn't master such precise control, what kind of fighting style would best suit the explosive power granted by One for All? Midoriya searched for a method that would allow him to land a decisive, crushing blow. One answer he discovered was Dam, a martial art that treats the dominant hand like a spear and the other like a shield, using the shield to clear an opponent's defenses before driving in the spear-like strike. It even incorporated a hidden kick in case the spear missed. I'm not sure if you'll be able to use it consistently," But the attempt was good, Kirishima observed. Honestly, I'm still rough around the edges. But I plan to keep researching and practicing, Midoriya answered. That's the spirit. Keep pushing yourself, and you might just become the best, Kirishima encouraged, clearly pleased by Midoriya's burning determination. The quiet confidence Midoriya sometimes exuded, despite often appearing like a clumsy underdog, was exactly what Kirishima admired. Though he wished Midoriya would take better care of himself, he couldn't figure out why his instincts seemed to kick in only when danger was near. Perhaps things would improve if he had a more reliable partner by his side. As the two exchanged smiles, applause suddenly erupted along the beach. That was wonderful, Midoriya, and you must be Kirishima, right? What an impressive physique. No, my teacher, Midoriya blurted, momentarily confused. Oh, hello there, came the warm greeting. Internally, Kirishima sighed quietly at the sight of All Might. The loose t-shirt clinging to his muscular yet gaunt frame only emphasized his frail appearance, and the dark shadows under his eyes made him seem almost sickly, though the determination in his burning eyes was unmistakable. So you're the one Midoriya always talks about. You look even stronger than I expected, and I heard you nabbed a villain recently, didn't you? All Might remarked. Ah yes, it's a bit embarrassing, but I was in a bit of a panic and just acted first, Midoriya admitted. No, I'm not blaming you. Kirishima, when you see someone in danger and your body reacts before your mind does, that's truly admirable. You're going to be a fine hero, All Might exclaimed. That wasn't exactly my body reacting on its own, Kirishima thought, a flush of awkwardness warming his cheeks as he absorbed the praise. Though he had indeed acted decisively when the situation called for it, and admittedly enjoyed the thrill of stepping into battle against a villain, it felt odd to be lauded for it. I don't know about all this praise. I just did what I could, Kirishima said modestly. That attitude is wonderful. You truly are a good person, Kirishima, All Might replied. See, I told you he helped me a lot. My teacher, that is, Midoriya added, still half embarrassed by his continual efforts to mention All Might's name. All Might, a living legend in his own right, felt a twinge of unease as he watched Midoriya repeatedly try to invoke his hero name. Midoriya, there's no all in my name. Now that I think about it, I know Kirishima's full name, but he doesn't know mine yet. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I'm Yagi Tashinori, and I'm helping Midoriya right now. A bit late, but it's a pleasure to meet you, Yagi.
I'm Kirishima Eiro.
I'm sure Midoriya has mentioned that, Kirishima replied. Watching the two introduce themselves, Midoriya's heart soared. It was a moment he had longed for, seeing two of the people he admired most finally exchange greetings. Although he couldn't exactly reveal Yagi's true identity to Kirishima, for now that was enough. So you've been overseeing Midoriya's training all this time? I took a look myself, and it's an impressively structured plan. One I'd gladly recommend to others, Yagi remarked. I was just helping him along with my own training. Truth is, if I were to coach him properly, I'd need to be with him every day, but distance didn't allow that. It feels a bit odd to be praised for that, Kirishima replied. Not at all. Thanks to you, Midoriya's strength has exceeded my expectations. Honestly, you've saved us a lot of time, Yagi observed. Kirishima understood exactly what Yagi meant by that, though he made no comment. Revealing too much now would only invite suspicion about how he knew so much. Midoriya has kept pace remarkably well. I've known him for 10 years now. When we first met, he looked so unsure of himself. I even wondered if he'd ever stick with training. I honestly thought he'd give up at least once along the way, Kirishima recalled. Really? You thought that? Why? Midoriya asked, astonished. Why? Don't you remember how you were when we first met? Bakugo was tearing into you over the smallest things, and you just shrank back in silence, completely overwhelmed. You had no backbone, yet kept saying you wanted to become a hero without any true resolve. If you knew how much I worried about turning you into someone reliable, you'd treat me with more respect, Kirishima chided. Was I really like that? Midoriya asked. TCH. You wouldn't remember even if you tried. If you knew how much I fretted over whether you'd ever give up, sending you training plans, checking in on you, you'd owe me more than just thanks. In truth, Kirishima had always worried about Midoriya's future. He already foresaw what Midoriya could become, even if Midoriya himself remained unaware. Understanding how easily one could waver in an uncertain future, he continuously adjusted the intensity of the training, resetting, reevaluating, and starting over again until Midoriya finally caught on. Why would I ever give up? You believed I could be a hero, Kirishima. I may be weak at times, but I'm not the kind of person who quits when someone like you is there to support me. All right, fine. I stand corrected. You did well, Kirishima conceded, ruffling Midoriya's hair affectionately. It wasn't a matter of denying his success. The praise was well earned. The bond of friendship between us. It's a sight to behold. And more importantly, during that spar just now, you held back against Midoriya, didn't you? Yes, it might sound a bit cocky, but if I went all out, Midoriya would be finished in one blow, he said. Oh, is that so? Yeah, that's about it. Midoriya had never seen Kirishima's perfected supersonic strike, which explained his measured confidence. If Kirishima truly fought at full power, he was certain he could end the bout before Midoriya even recognized the fight had begun. I understand. Forgive my forwardness on our first meeting, but would you mind showing me your full power technique? I might have some advice for you. Of course. After all, you're my teacher, Kirishima replied with a wry smile. There was no reason to turn down the help of a living legend like All Might. Stepping a short distance away from the pair, Kirishima focused his energy and pushed his quirk to the limit. His cells hardened as they clustered together into larger, tougher polygons that transformed his skin. With each layer of hardening came an increase in his physical abilities, and he raised his durability as much as he could. Then let's begin. It's a bit embarrassing to display my technique in front of All Might, he announced. Hey, Kirishima, wait, where's All Might? It was only after blurting out All Might's name and catching the surprised expressions of his companions that Kirishima realized his mistake. He had been so focused on the idea of showing All Might his best strike that he'd gotten carried away, and that one slip had cost him dearly. A cool sea breeze swept between the three frozen figures, and then silence fell. A cold silence fell over the area. It was Kirishima who shattered the suffocating stillness. So this isn't supposed to get out, is it? Only then did Midoriya and All Might regain their composure. Both stared in shock as they asked, Kirishima, how did you know? Midoriya, shouldn't you be keeping quiet?
No.
I mean, isn't it stranger to not know how I found out? Huh? Why? Kirishima was dumbfounded by Midoriya's question. Those shadowed eyes, piercing blue irises, and that rare, pure blonde hair. Above all, 220-centimeter tall Japanese man isn't exactly someone you'd mistake for an ordinary passerby. Though his muscular build could be imposing, he might as well have been considered family. Kirishima mused that people in this world were oddly oblivious at times, either failing to notice such a striking figure or simply overlooking him altogether. No matter how you look at it, he's All Might. The hair, the eyes, the height. Sure, you might say he's like family, but Midoriya, you nearly kept calling him All Might several times before switching it up, didn't you? Was it because of me? Ugh. Yeah, because of you. Ahem. Kirishima, there are circumstances, he added. Of course there are. That's why you carry yourself like this. Considering no one in the media has seen All Might's current appearance yet, it must be hard to reveal everything. Your secret is safe with me. Before All Might could elaborate further, Kirishima interjected. He didn't want to see the great hero troubled over something as trivial as his identity. To Kirishima, All Might's bearing was perfectly suited to a man of his accomplishments, an unmistakable air of dignity. Of course, even the manga from his previous life occasionally portrayed All Might with a hint of timidity. That nuance, strangely enough, reminded him of Midoriya. There's no need to explain the details. I'll just take it as there are circumstances and keep the secret, he said. Oh, thank you, All Might exclaimed as he briefly shifted into his muscle form. Watching his unguarded expression brought a genuine smile to Kirishima's face. Even after fighting villains for so long and holding up Japan on his own, the hero had never lost his humanity. It was both astonishing and deeply admirable. In that moment, Kirishima found himself yearning to be just like him. All right, let's get back to what we were doing. Ah, right, I forgot. I was so shocked, Midoriya admitted. I was so surprised I couldn't think straight either. Kirishima smiled at them, readjusted his stance, and resumed his posture with unwavering precision. His form, as if measured to the millimeter by an expert, unfolded before their eyes. Midoriya had witnessed it many times before, yet it never ceased to amaze him. Just by standing there with such impeccable form, Kirishima seemed to radiate an indomitable spirit, the bearing of a true master. Then let's begin. With that brief command, Kirishima sprang into action. His movements were so swift that Midoriya almost missed them entirely. It was just a simple step or two, yet it looked as if he had teleported. Astonished, Midoriya blinked as Kirishima's fists flew. Punches, faster than sound, sliced through the air, only the start and finish visible, with the middle a blur. Still, one could discern the precision of the move. Midoriya recalled something Kirishima had once said. Midoriya, a punch in boxing isn't merely about swinging your arm. It's driven by the motion of your legs. Style creates the fight, but every style begins with the lower body. It was a revelation, and it explained why Kirishima had dismissed Midoriya's own punches as a mess. Compared to this, the punches Midoriya threw, relying solely on his upper body, seemed utterly ineffective. Meanwhile, All Might's face registered astonishment. The youth before him was the same age as Midoriya. At barely 15, one wouldn't expect such remarkable prowess. Yet Kirishima had already ascended into the realm of masters. From his demonstration alone, it seemed that only a top-tier hero could hope to contend with him. Before anyone could recover from the shock, Kirishima concluded his brief display. That's all. I did my best, though I'm not entirely sure how it came off. As his intense expression softened back into his usual demeanor, he offered a sheepish smile. Kirishima knew, objectively, that his strength was exceptional. Yet compared to All Might, he was as insignificant as a firefly before the sun. He was curious how he appeared in the eyes of such a superhuman. Wow, Kirishima, I could barely follow that. Amazing. Ahem. For your age, you're remarkably strong. All Might remarked modestly. That was hardly flattery. Even disregarding his age, Kirishima was undeniably powerful. In terms of sheer combat ability, he could easily pass as a pro hero at this very moment. Perhaps he might even shatter Hawk's record of opening a hero agency at 18. But sensing that Kirishima wasn't merely fishing for compliments, All Might pressed on. Thank you for the praise. But tell me, was there anything that seemed lacking? Honestly, Kirishima, you're nearly perfect already. What I'm about to critique might sound forced, but no one is flawless. Kirishima listened intently to All Might's words. No one can be perfect. It was a simple truth. And yet, Kirishima still longed for absolute, flawless strength. What advice would someone embodying that perfection offer him? His heart began to pound. If I may be blunt, you seem particularly affected by the condition of the ground. Don't you think? That's true. A sandy surface is one thing, but muddy ground or underwater combat poses its own challenges, he replied. Then, if you want to handle those situations too, why not practice aerial combat? You're only going to keep getting stronger, and who knows, you might even learn to launch yourself by generating shockwaves through your legs, much like I do. That does make sense. He had already been considering aerial combat to some extent. In a world bursting with diverse quirks, neglecting the sky as part of the battlefield would only limit one's potential. Yet he had never thought about using his legs to create shockwaves. He'd only imagined kicking off the ground and taking flight. So, how exactly can I produce a shockwave with my legs? Huh? I simply put all my force behind them and push off. Don't I? Ah. Watching All Might explain so casually, Kirishima was once again reminded of whom he was speaking to. After all, this was the same man who once earnestly advised, "Smash with your glutes." A prodigy in his own right, yet hopeless when it came to teaching technique. He had encountered many of that sort before, but All Might stood out, even if it was in the worst possible way. Yes, I'll give it some careful thought. Haha. Sorry if I wasn't much help. Not at all. Getting advice from you is an honor. I'm more than satisfied. Oh, is that so? Then I'm relieved. Ha ha ha. Kirishima and All Might shared a hearty laugh. Midoriya, still puzzled by their antics, broke out in a cold sweat. More importantly, shouldn't we start training now? Feels like we've wasted enough time. Oh, right. Midoriya today too, plus Ultra. Let's push harder than yesterday. Eek. Yesterday was exhausting enough. If you were weak, I wouldn't be urging you. You've built a strong body with my help, so you must keep improving. Yes. Today, I'll train with you as well. So let's get to it with all our might. Somehow, having been molded from a young age, Midoriya had already developed the grumbles of a seasoned veteran. In his previous life, upon learning he could become a hero, he had thrown himself into training like a madman. Now he was subtly trying to ease up. Of course, once he started, he completed every task without a word of complaint. Kirishima grabbed Midoriya by the nape and led him toward a pile of trash. All right, it's been too long since we trained together. How about it? It might be fun. Don't you look forward to it?
No.
It doesn't sound fun at all. With a dejected Midoriya in tow, Kirishima began clearing away the trash. This time, he deliberately refrained from using his quirk to loosen up a bit. Even so, his superior strength allowed him to clear much more than Midoriya could manage. Only when the sun began to set did the two finally finish cleaning and bid farewell to All Might. Well then, we're off. Midoriya's mother said dinner is ready. Understood. Good work, Kirishima. Midoriya. Thank you for today, teacher. You really need to work on not blurting out, all unconsciously. At this rate, everyone will catch on. Yeah, if you've noticed, maybe I should stop using it altogether. I don't think that's the real issue. Kirishima almost remarked that the problem was simply Midoriya's carelessness, but he held back. He decided that as long as he remained alert, everything would be fine. Not using that word was so typical of Midoriya, and it was rather amusing. Ha ha ha. Then I'll take my leave. I have evening patrol duties after all. Yes, please be careful on your way back and don't overdo it. Well, if I run into a villain, I somehow end up subduing them before I even realize it. Watching All Might shrink into his own awkward manner, Kirishima couldn't help but think just how much he resembled Midoriya. Now that I think about it, didn't someone ask if this kid might be All Might's illegitimate son? Kirishima mused as he regarded Midoriya's grinning face. He recalled the remark vaguely, a comment made in passing by someone whose memory had since faded, noted mainly by a distinctive part in his hairline. What was his name? Todoroki? No, Shoto, wasn't it? Wasn't he also from this city? Apparently, he had been introduced as Endeavor's son. Though he clearly harbored disdain for Endeavor, that wasn't the pressing issue. So, with a nod, Kirishima bid farewell to All Might along with Midoriya. Then we're off. I don't think I can come tomorrow, so it might be a while before we see each other again. Oh? Why not tomorrow? Is something the matter? I have to see Bakugo tomorrow as well. Would I come here just to see you? Ah, Gakon. Anyway, I really should get going. Meeting you was truly meaningful, and I appreciate the advice. Until next time. Ha ha ha. Yes. I look forward to the day we meet again. Kirishima. After one final farewell to All Might, Kirishima headed home with Midoriya. The two walked with the setting sun at their backs. Tomorrow I'll see Bakugo's parents again after a long while. His mother will probably still look as youthful as ever, and I wonder what his father is like. Now that you mention it, just as my mom always adored you, Bakugo's parents have loved you since you were little, haven't they? I'm grateful for that. It's not every day you meet someone who wins you over, even after they beat you up the first time. Haha, true. I remember, the first time we met, you actually ended up fighting with Bakugo. Did I? He was the one who jumped in first. Besides, wasn't it because I was trying to stop Mina from intervening when he was yelling? Yeah. Those were the days. Midoriya said, a nostalgic look softening his features. Kirishima found it amusing that a 15-year-old could reminisce as if recalling events from 60 years ago, and playfully smacked Midoriya's head. Don't get all nostalgic now. That was only 10 years ago. Why act like you're recounting old times? 10 years is plenty for everything to change. I've changed a lot too. Yeah, a lot indeed. Back then, you wouldn't have even shouted at me. You'd have been on the verge of tears. I wasn't that bad. No, you were. If your memories aren't all sugar-coated, you were practically a mess back then. No, that's not true. On their way home, where a warm meal awaited, the two exchanged fond recollections of earlier days. There wasn't a trace of gloom on Midoriya's face as he retorted to Kirishima. Kirishima grinned at the sight. It seemed the kid had grown up quite well. The outcome of his own interference had turned out remarkably for the better, and that filled him with contentment. 15 years old, yet already thinking like a father, Kirishima mused as they headed home. The evening at Midoriya's house was warm and comfortable. The three of them spent the time chatting casually. Although most of the conversation revolved around Midoriya, Kirishima's stories occasionally came up as well. One of the 2 days they would spend in Mustafu ended quietly like that. The next day, Kirishima left the house to meet Bakugo. I'm heading out. Midoriya, keep up your training, he called out. Have a good trip. Text me if you're running late, came the reply. I wish I could come along too, Kirishima admitted. You need to train. Don't even think about skipping it. You said you usually train in the morning, didn't you? Yeah, usually. Then train hard. Remember, out of Bakugo, Mina, you, and me, you're the weakest. The teasing continued. I know that without you even mentioning it, he retorted. With that, Kirishima finished his remarks and left without a second thought. Bakugo's house wasn't far off. After a short walk through the crisp morning air, a large, stylish house soon came into view. When he rang the bell, a familiar voice answered. Who is it? It's Kirishima. I'm here for our appointment today, ma'am. Oh, it's Ijiro. I've been waiting for you. I'll open the door right away, the voice said warmly. As the door unlocked, Kirishima stepped inside. Carefully removing his shoes and walking into the living room, he was greeted by a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Bakugo. Wow, Ijiro, you've really grown. Katsuki mentioned it, but seeing you in person makes it all the more real, she exclaimed. Haha, hello. Yes, I've grown a lot. Even now, I'm still getting taller, Ijiro replied with a shy smile. Our Katsuki isn't exactly short, but compared to you, he doesn't stand a chance, she teased. What are you talking about? What does height even matter? Besides height, what else can you beat him in? Bakugo, irritated by the teasing, bristled at Kirishima's cutting remark as it hit a sore spot. It was no secret that Bakugo wasn't much good at a fair fight either. TCH, Bakugo grumbled. Turning your head? You really are clueless sometimes, Kirishima said lightly. So Eijiro is still Katsuki's natural rival, huh? Bakugo's mother laughed heartily at the exchange. From their boisterous first encounter until now, she had always supported Kirishima. Her influence had helped Kirishima keep Bakugo in line, even if it meant occasionally putting him in his place. It's just that this kid judges everyone by strength. And with parents as good as yours, ma'am, he'd probably be a lot more of a hothead otherwise, Kirishima explained. I did nothing. It was all Eijiro's doing, Bakugo scoffed. Oh, come on. What could I possibly do when I barely see him? It's your parents who are always there for him, she continued cheerfully. How can you say that right in front of me? Bakugo retorted. Well, without your parents, you might have turned out to be a real punk, she teased. Kirishima almost called him a villain, but he held back in respect of Bakugo's mother. Even if Bakugo could be as wild as a rampaging colt, it wouldn't do to suggest he'd end up a criminal. Although his words walked a fine line, she just laughed it off as she always did. In truth, Kirishima had spent enough time around them to know that they wouldn't mind at all. Katsuki does have a bit of a rough edge. And it's true, before meeting you, he used to think he was the best in the world, Kirishima remarked. I never did that, you old bat. Bakugo snapped, his cheeks flushing. Come on, watch your tongue with your own mother. What kind of manners is that when speaking to such a wonderful woman? With a playful swing, Kirishima patted Bakugo's head. You really don't know how lucky you are, he mused. If you ever met parents as good as mine were in my previous life, you'd understand just how special your upbringing is. That's why I didn't want to bring you here in the first place. The moment you two meet, trouble always follows, and then I'm the one who gets the blame, Bakugo complained. That's because you make scolding so easy, little Katsuki, Kirishima teased. This is exactly why I find you so entertaining. In fact, sometimes I feel like you should just move in with us, she added with a laugh. Watching Bakugo's mother beam with genuine delight, Kirishima couldn't help but marvel at how strange this world was. How someone like Bakugo could come from such a normal, sensible family, despite judging people solely by strength, a mindset that belonged in another era entirely. Since you're here, you should have something to drink. How about the usual green tea? She offered. Yes, green tea sounds great, Eijiro agreed. And Katsuki will have Pepsi Fire, she added. Yeah, Bakugo grunted. Kirishima stared at Bakugo in disbelief. The cinnamon-flavored cola released last year had somehow become a cult favorite as a spicy drink. He knew Bakugo liked spicy foods, but he hadn't expected him to enjoy a spicy soda as well. Though Kirishima himself appreciated a bit of heat, perhaps a remnant of his Korean heritage, he couldn't quite understand Bakugo's bizarre taste. You really drink that stuff? Kirishima asked, incredulous. What? You got a problem with it? It's delicious, Bakugo shot back. No, it's not that I'm telling you what to drink. It's just... Bakugo bristled at the sympathetic look in Kirishima's eyes, but he bit his tongue. With 10 years of experience under his belt, he knew all too well that arguing with Kirishima almost always ended in his own defeat. Just then, Bakugo's mother brought out snacks and tea. Here, it's not much, but enjoy, she said warmly. If this isn't much, then it sure is a lot, Bakugo grumbled. Kirishima broke into a cold sweat at the sight of the table laden with an array of snacks, some of which were too expensive to grab on a whim. Haha, when Eijiro is around, this is the bare minimum, she laughed. Ah yes, I'll happily enjoy it, Eijiro replied. After expressing his thanks, Kirishima took a sip of tea. In his previous life, he had been a coffee drinker, but after reincarnation his palate had shifted toward tea. The deep, rich aroma hit his nostrils, and a pleasantly bitter flavor coated his mouth before sliding smoothly down his throat. It was clear this was high-grade tea. "It's delicious," he said appreciatively. "Really? I'm glad it suits you, Ijiro. I'm the only one in this house who drinks tea, so it's been a while since I had someone to share it with," she teased. "I see. Katsuki, you should try tea with your mom sometime," Ijiro remarked. "Mind your own business," Bakugo retorted. "I'm always on my best behavior with my mother," he added defensively. As Bakugo tried to chime in, Kirishima easily cut him off and settled in to enjoy the snacks and tea. Conversation flowed easily, and soon the topic of Bakugo's antics became the center of attention. Despite the bubbling anger inside him, Bakugo sipped his spicy cola in silence. Time flew by as the conversation turned light and cheerful. Eventually, Kirishima set down his empty teacup and spoke up. "Thank you. That tea was truly excellent. Come back anytime, and I'll have more tea ready for you. Besides, having you around seems to keep him a bit in check." Bakugo's mother replied with a smile. "Haha, he's definitely improved compared to before. Speaking of which, I'll head out with Katsuki for a bit." "Let's go, Katsuki," Kirishima said.
HMPH fine, Bakugo granted.
"What about lunch?" Kirishima asked. "We'll probably grab something to eat," Bakugo replied. "In that case, why not come back here for dinner? It's been a while since we all ate together. Maybe we can even call Izuku," she suggested. "Oh, then I'll be back this evening. It'll be nice to have your cooking again, ma'am," Ijiro agreed. "All right, I'll look forward to it. I'll prepare something delicious, so you must come. Okay?" "Yes, don't worry," came the reply. After a brief exchange, Bakugo quickly gathered his things. The two of them then left the house and headed toward a nearby mountain. This was the spot where Kirishima often watched Midoriya and Bakugo train whenever he came to Mustafu. The mountain was seldom frequented, and a perfect clearing midway made it an ideal training ground. Soon they arrived at the training area. Kirishima glanced over at Bakugo and said, "First, let's run through your training routine."
Fine, Bakugo replied.
After a proper warm-up and some stretching, Bakugo was ready to start. Kirishima handed him a training program that combined accessible exercises, burpees, squats, pull-ups, and push-ups, with more challenging moves like frog jumps and stand-up jumps. Although it might have seemed simple, the routine proved to be brutally demanding once underway. Bakugo's breathing grew rough and a light sweat broke out on his brow, yet he completed the set without appearing overly strained. Kirishima clapped appreciatively. "Good. You really gave it your all. Of course, just don't regret helping me train when I finally beat you," Bakugo shot back. That won't happen," Kirishima replied with quiet confidence. Bakugo bristled at Kirishima's nonchalant attitude, though he kept his retort to himself. Deep down, he knew he wasn't yet confident enough to defeat that monstrously talented peer. Perhaps if he made better use of his quirk, Explosion, he might stand a chance. Still, there was no way he could risk a full-on explosive bout in such a public spot without causing a scene. "By the way, you only showed Midoriya, didn't you?" Bakugo suddenly inquired. "Why cut the story short? What exactly did you show Deku?" "Yesterday, while watching Midoriya train, I gave him the best display of my abilities that I can currently muster," Kirishima explained. "Ha!" Bakugo frowned at the remark. Although it was probably nothing significant, he couldn't shake the irritation at Midoriya being mentioned first. Honestly, it bugged him. Yet, somewhere deep inside, a small spark of excitement flickered, an odd anticipation of witnessing that same peak performance from himself. He wondered what kind of display the boy, who had never once been beaten since childhood, the very one who shattered his pride of invincibility, would put on. Part of him even entertained the thought that if the performance fell short, it might be disappointing, but that idea quickly evaporated. After all, it wasn't like Deku would ever turn villainous. If I don't show you, you'll throw a fit, so I might as well demonstrate it. Mina knew from the start, and Midoriya found out yesterday you're my friend after all. You shouldn't be left out, Kirishima urged. What nonsense are you spouting? Either show it or get it over with. Bakugo snapped. Always so quick to anger. Fine, I'll show you, Kirishima conceded. With that, Kirishima assumed his stance and began shadowboxing. His rapid strikes split the air, and his nimble footwork seemed to sketch dynamic patterns on the ground. Each blow, breaking the sound barrier, tore through the quiet with a low, resonant rumble that echoed across the clearing. Bakugo let out a quiet groan as he observed movements that should have been fluid but instead appeared disjointed at moments. He already knew that his colossal peer was absurdly strong for his age, yet what he witnessed was nothing short of shocking. Is this kid insane or what? Bakugo muttered under his breath. It wasn't unheard of to see such displays. After all, fighters like Edgeshot or Mirko could exhibit similar prowess. But that was precisely the issue. These were seasoned warriors, older and far more experienced, who had cemented their legacies through countless battles. So why was this 15-year-old, someone Bakugo had known since they were 5, displaying skills that rivaled those legends? How was it even possible? Once again, Bakugo felt the weight of the world's injustice. At that moment, Kirishima halted and turned to him. So, how was it? Hey, Bakugo grumbled. Yeah? What is it? Humph. You bastard. Bakugo was lost for words. What could he possibly say to someone who had just delivered such an overwhelming display, while looking at him as if nothing were amiss? A fleeting thought crossed his mind, that perhaps he would never beat this guy in his entire life. A crushing sense of defeat weighed on his shoulders as anger welled up within him, directed both at himself for feeling vulnerable and at the peer who had made him question his invincibility. He ground his teeth. For the first time in his life, Bakugo felt a loss of confidence, and that was a far more bitter pill to swallow than he had imagined. It even made him wonder if this was how Deku had felt in his childhood. A tense silence fell between Bakugo, glaring at Kirishima, and Kirishima, calmly returning his look. Only the cool mountain breeze, playfully stirring the leaves, flowed between them. Kirishima met Bakugo's glare without a trace of concern, even as Bakugo clenched his teeth and fixed him with an intense stare. In truth, before unleashing that supersonic strike, it was Bakugo who had given Kirishima the most cause for worry. Knowing Bakugo's relentless drive to be number one, as opposed to Midoriya or Mina, it was inevitable that he would feel an even greater blow from it. While the others would simply marvel at Kirishima's prowess, Bakugo's perspective was entirely different. For Bakugo, Kirishima was a mountain to be conquered, a crucial stepping stone in his ascent toward All Might. He had no idea how someone like Kirishima would react to something so extraordinary. At worst, Bakugo might be driven to utter despair. Even so, Kirishima had resolved to reveal his supersonic strike to Bakugo. Bakugo's nature was such that if he were deliberately kept in the dark, he'd only explode later when the truth came out. Besides, Kirishima believed that no matter how shaken Bakugo might be momentarily, he would soon pick himself up again. Why? You jealous? Jealous? Me? Yeah, you've got the look of a girl who's just caught her boyfriend cheating. Ah, jealous? I always knew you were a weirdo, but have you lost your mind? Though Bakugo's expression still wavered, his tone had returned to its usual rough cadence. Kirishima exhaled in relief. Bakugo was a hot-headed, battered soul, but he was still someone Kirishima had known for 10 long years. Kirishima wasn't about to watch him crumble in defeat. Hey, what? You really think you can beat me? Bakugo's serious question set Kirishima's jaw tight. For the first time, the guy who had always overflowed with reckless confidence was visibly shaken. Kirishima couldn't help but think that this was a striking sight indeed. You don't really think so, do you? I want to say I can. I want to say I'll surpass you one day and beat you. But honestly, the words just won't come out. Bakugo's fist, clenched with every bit of his strength, trembled visibly. Looking into Bakugo's gritted face, Kirishima replied calmly, "Did the frog in the well choke when it saw the world outside? What? I'm only just getting started. I've barely set foot on the battlefield of legends. You already know my goal is all might and beyond. I'm talking about being the indisputable strongest in history, an immortal force no one will ever dare match." "Ah, you're crazy." Bakugo shuddered at Kirishima's measured tone. The man before him truly believed every word he spoke. Without a doubt, he was convinced that he would one day attain that lofty goal. Bakugo was once again reminded of the caliber of the man he was chasing. Kirishima was a mountain, an insurmountable peak that reached ever upward toward the sky. TCH. Why are you acting like a scared little kid? What, if I get so strong that you can't keep up, are you just going to give up, retire from hero work after raking in a few bucks, live a mediocre life, get cozy with your family, and leave some dying words telling them not to aim too high? Idiot. If you live like that, you won't even get close to your goals, and you'll kick the bucket early. Didn't some old sage once say, "Know thyself, know thyself"? What did you just call me? Bakugo's glare deepened as he absorbed the biting, knife-sharp words from Kirishima. But more than anything, he was furious with himself. He couldn't fathom that, even for a moment, he had entertained the thought of surrender because of Kirishima's influence. That ridiculously formidable guy wasn't entirely wrong. He was someone who constantly reached for the top without ever stopping short. Though he had never beaten Kirishima, he still believed that victory was inevitable one day. Just because you start ahead doesn't mean you'll stay ahead forever. Even if you seem backsliding now, you might just find yourself at the summit later. Do I really have to spell it out for you? What am I, your dad? Geez, seriously, are you my best friend? Or what? I even help out guys who are flailing around trying to beat me. I'm practically a saint. If you're a saint, then what does that make Deku? A Buddha? Bakugo, steadying his rattled heart, retorted in his usual gruff manner. It was clear that Bakugo had changed. He no longer carried himself as the invincible guy among his peers. There was still a massive wall ahead of him, a towering barrier. Yet he had resolved not to view it as insurmountable. He would never again allow himself to wallow in a defeatist haze. Even if he climbed, fell, coughed up blood, and broke every limb, he would rise again. And if he kept climbing, he believed that eventually he would reach the top. So when the hell did you come up with that? Huh? This? Without missing a beat, Kirishima demonstrated his familiar 1-2 combo in response to Bakugo's query. A lightning-fast punch zipped past Bakugo's eyes. It was delivered as if no special preparation was needed at all. Yeah, that insane punch. Insane? That's an insult. Don't call something this basic insane. Something worthy of that label would be an all-might punch, the kind that can change the weather with one hit. Ah, is that what you think? Bakugo was once again struck by the difference in their standards. This guy was already setting his sights on all might. Everything else was merely a stepping stone. Even techniques honed with enormous effort were regarded as just part of the journey. Perhaps it was because he was genuinely chasing a faster, stronger version of himself. Bakugo realized that there was much he could learn from this man, even if he hated admitting it. So, when did you make it? If you're asking when I made it, it's just my usual 1-2 that I've been practicing as hard as I can. Sure, I did go through some special training on my own, but I wasn't trying to invent some ultimate move. It's just part of the basics. You're insane. If you say something like that anywhere else, you'll get a slap. So watch it. Watching Kirishima casually toss out such intimidating words, Bakugo clicked his tongue. When people witness someone accomplishing the seemingly impossible, they either revere or resent them. But there was no need to broadcast every cutting remark and make more enemies in the process. Bakugo, who himself was prone to blurting out harsh truths, felt a pang of concern for Kirishima. Midoriya might be the same, but this guy was on another level entirely. Bakugo had never seen himself as normal, but compared to the others, he was practically exemplary. Everyone was fooled by the polite, respectable facade, oblivious to the truth lurking beneath. Really, is it normal for someone to start training at age 2 just to become the strongest? And after such grueling training, to brawl with an adult at age 5 and then become a top-tier pro hero by 15, that defies all sense of normalcy. Contemplating the hellish training behind it all, Kirishima realized that, in some ways, he was even crazier than Deku. Anyone who saw him in battle even once would agree, he wasn't normal. 5, with a gaping hole in his stomach, he still moved like a man possessed, delivering punishing blows to his enemies. Back then, Kirishima had looked happy. Happy to have an enemy with real intent, happy to strike back, even happy to get hurt in the process. It wasn't just the rush of adrenaline. It was the look of someone utterly consumed by the madness of battle. I'm only saying this because it's you. I know I'm strong, and I know it's not great to act like it's no big deal. But more importantly, why am I the one listening to you lecture me on social skills? You're the least social one in our group. No, you jerk. You're the hypocrite, and I'm the honest one. I wouldn't say I'm a hypocrite. I'm sincere with everyone. Sure, if it were a villain, I could lie all day long. You idiot. You're just a fight-crazed lunatic. Oh, that's true. But I'm not completely crazy. I do think before I act. So that's why you made the headlines a few days ago for taking down a villain? Ah, well, I was a bit fired up then, but I didn't just charge in blindly. I fought because I believed I had to. Oh, really? Bakugo found Kirishima's words absurd, but he let it pass. He wasn't one to split hairs over every little detail. Part of the reason no one saw through this man's true nature was that his smooth tongue could make even the harshest words sound right. He appeared polished and courteous, yet with those he was close to he unleashed merciless barbs so sharp that, after a while, even the recipient might believe the criticism was justified. There's a difference between stating a truth and delivering it in an abrasive manner, and when the delivery is rough, it can rub people the wrong way. This guy had a knack for making even the nastiest insults seem acceptable. Anyway, that's a wrap on the showcase. Don't come back later with any more idle chatter. I made sure to show you everything fairly. Who the hell do you take me for? A spoiled kid with a fragile ego who'd lose his cool if I kept something from him. Kaya, you trying to pick a fight? And if we do fight, can you even win? I can't stand it. Bring it on. I'm settling the pecking order today. Nah, friends don't have a pecking order. Looks like your social skills are still a work in progress. Huh. Kirishima dodged Bakugo's charge, sprinting away as he spoke. It wasn't the malicious attack from their very first meeting. If anything, it felt like a bit of friendly roughhousing. Of course, Kirishima had no intention of actually landing a punch. He was simply evading Bakugo's pursuit. Bakugo, unable to match Kirishima's speed, eventually became exhausted from the chase. Huff, huff. Why are you so fast? Stay still over there. If I stop, you'll just charge again, won't you? And I don't need you to compliment my speed. I know I'm fast. That hardly counts as a compliment. Finally, Bakugo collapsed onto the ground from sheer exhaustion. Only then did Kirishima come over to sit beside him. After exerting himself so much, Bakugo looked noticeably lighter. Even on the dirt, Bakugo simply lay back, gazing upward at Kirishima as he spoke. Hey, yeah? What is it? I'm definitely going to beat you. Even if I end up losing to everyone else, I'll beat you for sure. If you beat me, you'll probably be able to beat everyone else too. Hey, you damn! Listen up. You ramble on so much I forgot what I was gonna say. Maybe it's not that I'm rambling, but that you're just plain stupid. Bakugo frowned at Kirishima, whose relentless jeering was starting to grate on him, looking up at Kirishima's face, which somehow seemed even more distant when viewed from below. Bakugo spoke in a quieter tone than usual. Forget it. I'm not interested in a verbal battle. I've got a favor to ask. What is it? If it's something I can do, I'll listen. We're friends, after all. You never lose again. If you lose to anyone other than me, I won't forgive you. Knock everyone down and keep climbing. Hold that throne until I come to claim it. Kirishima paused, pondering what on earth Bakugo was really getting at, and why he was calling it a favor, before bursting into laughter at the absurdity of it all. He truly was an interesting bastard. What fun would life be if there were only enemies to fight and allies to protect? Sometimes it's those unpredictable, neither enemy nor ally types who add excitement to the mix. Mina and Midoriya were good guys, but they lacked that certain spark. They had ambition, sure, but it wasn't directed at Kirishima. In contrast, Bakugo was always eyeing Kirishima and charging straight toward him. Kirishima thought it was a blessing to have at least one friend who kept pushing him like that. But what if Midoriya overtakes you? Huh? Are you out of your mind? Me? Lose to Deku? You heard that Midoriya got a quirk, right? He can't control it yet, but they say the output is off the charts. No matter what quirk that Deku bastard ends up with, I'll still win. I'm going to win, no doubt about it. Sure. Yeah. Kirishima patted the rattled Bakugo on the shoulder. Knowing that Midoriya had inherited one for all, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy. He wasn't sure Bakugo would lose, but he did think the road ahead for him would be rough. Kirishima was only thinking about the hardship Bakugo would endure, not the struggles lying in wait for himself. Afterward, thank you to everyone who read, recommended, favorited, and commented. At some freeloader / I do plan to strengthen Bakugo. That said, in the original work he grows stronger in various ways, and the mechanism by which Bakugo uses his quirk seems limited in my opinion, so I'm still mulling over how best to power him up. I'll have to think about it some more. At Magic Sword Keyboard / Bakugo will, at the very least, mature a bit faster mentally than he does in the original. I don't know what Pepsi Fire tastes like either, haven't tried it. Honestly, I'm not even that curious. I enjoyed MHA's videos too, but the biggest inspiration for this novel's Kirishima was actually Mjayongbei's King of Fists reincarnation. I felt that the rock-solid body capable of withstanding any attack, a trait shared by original Hero ACA's Kirishima and Jim Unbreakable in King of Fists reincarnation, was a central theme. At Heavenly Will Sage King / first off, I don't agree that a single quirk has an upper limit. All Might and All for One were designed as the ultimate beings in this world, and aside from each other, only Midoriya, or his archenemy Shigaraki, even comes close. Because that rule must be maintained, any quirk that might threaten them is burdened with various penalties, a prime example being Aizawa. If Aizawa were a villain without constraints on lethality, I believe he could even take down All Might. The quirk apprehension test already showed that Erasure can completely shut down One for All's activation. If Aizawa were to hide among a crowd with a lethal weapon, a gun, perhaps, and fire while nullifying the target's quirk, most heroes wouldn't have a chance to respond. Even All Might, reduced to a 220cm seasoned warrior without One for All, would struggle to dodge or block bullets. Frankly, I believe that a defensive, passive hero who operates in the open cannot counter an assassin like Aizawa. That's why in the original, Aizawa refrains from killing and resorts to capture tools instead. Just handing him a pistol would make him vastly more dangerous than he is now. Of course, that won't be happening. Another example is Yairozu's creation. In theory, this quirk can manufacture weapons of mass destruction akin to nuclear arms, so powerful that it can rival even irregulars like One for All or All for One in terms of destructive force. Even without direct physical impact, it could cause massive economic and societal damage by creating precious metals, checks, and the like. Granted, given that she's an aspiring hero, I doubt she'll ever unleash her power fully in an offensive role. If the examples above are about quirks whose inherent nature allows them to challenge the strongest, what I'm talking about now is more fundamental. It's not something just anyone can do. Yet Shigaraki's awakening proved that even a single quirk can wield unimaginable destructive power. With nothing but decay, Shigaraki can tear a city apart. I believe this opened the door for other single quirks to become equally formidable, depending on their evolution. Of course, Shigaraki receives special treatment as the protagonist's archenemy, so I'm not entirely sure if the same applies to other characters. Still, keeping that in mind, I made Kirishima the central figure. After all, the story repeatedly emphasizes that he is growing endlessly stronger. It might just be a rhetorical flourish, but I figured it was better than having nothing at all. Finally, there's the quirk singularity. The original work suggests that as generations pass, quirks become increasingly complex and may pose a threat to the world. Within the current generation, and even 2 or 3 generations down the line, we may see quirks emerge that are powerful enough to rival true irregulars like One for All or All for One. Sure, there are already quirks like Creation on the scene, but as a reader, it's hard to feel their impact when the protagonists are so underrepresented. Kirishima and Bakugo came down from the mountain, grabbed lunch, and spent some time idling before calling Midoriya over. By the time training was over, Midoriya had finished washing up. His hair was still damp. "You heard we're eating at their place tonight, right?" "Yeah. It's been a while since I went to Kaken's house." "TCH. So why the hell did you even come out here?" "Huh? You and Kirishima called me. Didn't you?" I know. I'm asking why you came." Bakugo glared as if he had summoned Midoriya only to be annoyed by his answer. If this had been 10 years ago, Midoriya would have shrunk away in embarrassment, but having grown stronger over the years, he replied with an unruffled tone. "Kaken, are we really in a situation where it's fine to call me a pig, but absolutely not okay to do it in return? What are you talking about, you damn Deku? Are you trying to call me a pig in some roundabout way?" "No way. Kaken isn't a pig, though I suppose he might be compared to a dog." Though he murmured the last part softly, Bakugo caught the insinuation and bristled. "You damn Deku bastard. Do you seriously think that just because you got a quirk, you suddenly can't see who's boss? Want to settle who's on top? Shut up. This is a residential area, keep it down. And besides, what's the point of ranking friends?" Kirishima clapped Bakugo on the shoulder to calm him down, just as his fury seemed about to boil over. It may have looked like a light tap, but Bakugo felt a dull shock ripple through him. "Why is it only me getting hit? You damn beanpole. I didn't hit you. Had I done so, your shoulder would have been ripped clean off by now, drilling into the floor. If someone gets hurt by a hit, then it's justified, right? You used to say that when we were kids. Don't you remember?" "Ah, right.
I guess I forgot."
"I didn't know your shoulder was so delicate." "Kirishima, that's not the point." Bakugo seethed with irritation, but he held his tongue. There was no need to drag the conversation on. After Midoriya echoed no in protest, Kirishima smoothly steered the topic elsewhere. "Whether Bakugo's shoulder is like a girl's or not doesn't really matter. We came here to eat, your mom must be waiting. Let's get going, right? Let's hurry up." It's been a while since I've seen Kaken's mom, too. Almost a month, I think. Ever since that last time we ran into each other downtown. "Huh? You've been seeing my mom lately?" "I ran into her by chance on my way back from the city after picking up All Might's new photo book." "Oh, is that so?" Bakugo tensed at the mention of a separate meeting, but relaxed when he realized it was merely a coincidence. Noticing Bakugo's obvious reaction, Kirishima laughed. All right, you may be a rude kid who calls his own mom an old lady, but deep down you love her too much, Bakugo. If you don't get home soon, she'll be disappointed. Let's go. What are you even saying? Haha. Sometimes your feelings show too clearly, Kaken. Midoriya and Kirishima ribbed Bakugo as they walked toward his house. In truth, contrary to Kirishima's exaggeration, their homes were nearby, so it didn't take long to reach. Upon entering Bakugo's house, they found his father already home. Oh, hello there. Wow, it's been a long time. Have you been well, sir?
Ah, Kirishima.
Mitsuki mentioned you'd grown a lot. The last time you visited, you were just a bit taller than me. Now I have to look up to you completely. As for me, I'm still the same. Haha, looks like I've grown a bit, haven't I? The hospital said my growth plates haven't closed yet, so I might get even taller. Even taller? Will you end up as tall as All Might someday? Being as tall as All Might would be nice, but I'll be satisfied at 2 meters. Not that I'm unhappy with where I am now. Beanpole, if you keep saying that, what does that make Deku and me? We're not even 180 centimeters. Exactly. It just makes you feel inferior, doesn't it? No, I'm just stating facts. But if feelings of inferiority come up, doesn't that mean you've always been dissatisfied with your own height? I'm not dissatisfied, but compared to you, I sure do look short. Is that so? I don't really think I'm that big. Having been born and raised in America in a previous life, Kirishima never regarded his current height of just over 190 centimeters as particularly extraordinary. Even in America, 190 centimeters was tall, nothing overwhelmingly so, especially among white or black folks. Midoriya, it's been a while for you too. Not as long as it has for you, Kirishima, but it's been ages since you've visited our place, hasn't it? Yeah, it really has. Kaken's been acting sensitive lately, so he hasn't invited me over much. Huh? What did you say? Oh, nothing. Oh? Izuku's here? You two still get along? Huh? While Bakugo's father exchanged greetings with Midoriya, Bakugo's mother emerged from the kitchen. Bakugo made a face of pure disbelief at her comment. Mom, you think this is what getting along looks like? With your personality, isn't this as good as it gets? The other kids seem more like underlings than friends. Her honest remark struck a nerve, and Bakugo grumbled, though secretly he wondered if she might be right. Still, he quickly countered aloud, No way! There's no way I'm on good terms with these guys. Then what is it? This beanpole is an enemy I'll crush soon. And that doormat has already been crushed. First of all, I'm not your enemy, you idiot. Do you really have nothing but enemies? Kirishima ruffled Bakugo's hair in a playful scold for spouting nonsense. Bakugo grumbled in protest, but there was little he could do against Kirishima's strength. Midoriya watched the two with a goofy smile. You all must be hungry. Wait in the living room a bit. I've set the table and most of the food is ready. I just need to bring out the carriage I've been making. Yes, ma'am. And could someone get the drinks? Sure thing. Kirishima led the kids to the living room. The table was already laden with a variety of dishes. After a few minutes of chatting with the children, Bakugo's parents entered carrying a plate piled high with carriage. Everyone began eating. The food was delicious, and the company was even better. Although Bakugo still maintained his prickly demeanor and Midoriya had developed an impish air compared to his earlier, more awkward self, both seemed much more at ease than during their first meeting. Bakugo's mother continued to lead the conversation with her boisterous energy, while his father contributed shyly. Old memories surfaced, stories of their first meeting, how much Bakugo had mellowed over time, tales of Midoriya's quirk, and even Kirishima's achievements. all blossoming over a dining table bathed in the harsh white glow of a fluorescent light. Before long, the pleasant time had flown by, and after finishing their meal, Kirishima and Midoriya found themselves standing at the front door. Thanks for the fantastic meal. We'll be on our way now. Stay healthy until next time. Katsuki, even if I don't say it, you'll be fine, but let me say it anyway. Take care. If you're gonna say goodbye that way, then just leave it unsaid. Come on. You can't just skip a proper farewell. I ate well too. Next time I'll visit sooner. And Kaken, you should come to our place sometime. Why the hell would I ever go to your house? Ah, come on. You'd come if we invited you, so don't be such a deadbeat. Kaya, I'm not going. I'm not going. Why do you always flat out say you're not coming? At times like this, you're supposed to say you'll drop by if you get the chance. Honey, that sounds like you're just dancing around a refusal. Exactly. There's no way this kid would nonchalantly go over to Izuku's place. Their relationship is so weird. I can never tell if they're close or if they despise each other. What are you even saying? It's obvious we don't get along.
Yeah, son.
Haha. Alright, we're really off now. Take care, both of you. Katsuki, you too. Goodbye. Take care, Kaken. Yeah, and you too, Izuku and Ijiro. Ijiro, you should visit more often. You used to come by at least once a month, but lately you've been pretty scarce. I've been a bit busy lately. I still have next year's entrance exams to prepare for, but I'll visit as often as I can. After exchanging their farewells with the Bakugo family, Midoriya and Kirishima headed home. The scorching heat of the day had long since faded, replaced by the cool caress of a night breeze along the road. The two walked side by side under the starlight. Midoriya glanced at Kirishima and spoke softly. Kirishima, yeah, come to think of it. Isn't this the 100th time I've been to Kaken's place? Huh? 100 times? That many? Or is that even a lot? More importantly, how do you even keep count? Puhaha. There's no way it's really been 100 times. Who even counts things like that? You actually believe me? Watching Midoriya burst into laughter, Kirishima wondered if he'd somehow ended up raising a tiger. Now it seemed Midoriya was turning the tables on him. As Kirishima considered how to respond, Midoriya continued, You know, when I was little I actually really hated Kaken, before I met you anyway. Well, honestly, who could like him? Even now, he's far from a nice guy, and back then he was an absolute jerk. Not some Stockholm Syndrome case. Of course you hated him. Yeah. Back then he looked down on everyone because he had a great quirk and he even hit people. When we were little, we used to play together just fine. But even then he'd get angry for no reason sometimes. I suppose he had his reasons. There's no tombstone without an inscription, so of course he had his reasons. The question is whether they made any sense. But what hurt more than his actions was how I felt about myself. I was quirkless, and I always felt like I was missing something, like I was being treated unfairly. I wanted to shout about it, but couldn't. I see. Yeah. I remember once, Mom hugged me, crying and apologizing for giving birth to a quirkless kid. I felt like I was already done for, and seeing her like that just made me even angrier and more upset. But what I really wanted to hear wasn't an apology. It was someone saying, You can do this. You know how kids are. No matter what the world says, if Mom and Dad believe in you, you'll believe it too. I wanted those words, but I never got them. Your mom must have been hurting too. Don't be too hard on her. Yeah, I know it's all in the past now. I've come to understand the feelings behind her words. Right? Choosing to listen rather than argue, Kirishima offered a brief reply. Anyway, the funny thing is that until just a little while ago, we were kids who played together. But once I became quirkless, things changed. It was like an invisible hierarchy formed instantly. Kaken with his amazing quirk, the ordinary kids, and then me, the quirkless one. What really gets to me now is that I went along with that order without even realizing it. Really? I remember you being pretty timid when we first met. Yeah. Before I knew it, I started believing that because I was quirkless, I couldn't do anything right. I lost my confidence, I couldn't speak up for myself. And in the middle of it all, Kakin, who'd always been my childhood friend, acted like he was the leader among us. I envied him, I was jealous, and I was mad at him for pushing me around. That's complicated. Not simple at all. The strangest part is, I ended up admiring Kakin. Not his personality, but his quirk, the way he carried himself. You're not telling me that's Stockholm Syndrome, are you? TCH. No, not that at all. Anyway, as I was growing more fragile emotionally, then I met you, Kirishima. That was when you were 5, right? Yeah. Back when neither Mom nor Kakin's mom realized how strained things had become between us. Kakin never openly picked on me in front of our parents, so we even went on that trip together. And that's when I met you. You have no idea how shocked I was when you beat him. If I'd known that, I'd be working as a fortune teller by now. And when you told me that even someone quirkless like me could do something great, I was overjoyed. It was simply shocking. Why are you saying all this embarrassing stuff? I'm just telling it like it was. But now I don't hate Kakin or envy him anymore. I've stopped idolizing him. Looking back, I guess I was drowning in inferiority. Well, that happens. But it's gone now. So many people helped me along the way, All Might, and you too, Kirishima. Kirishima secretly found it a bit ridiculous that All Might had become so important to Midoriya, despite having practically raised him for 10 years, but he let it go. If there were a cult that worshipped All Might as a god, Midoriya would easily be one of its cardinals. Placing a hand on Midoriya's head, Kirishima said calmly, "Growth doesn't come just because people around you help. No matter how much they try, if there's no room in you, you can't accept it. You just grew up a lot on your own." Yeah. Midoriya had more he wanted to say, but he held his tongue. Though everyone's aware that All Might was his mentor, thanks to Kirishima's thoughtfulness, he hadn't mentioned one for all. Midoriya had received something precious from All Might, a legacy not just of a quirk, but a will toward justice, and he had to become someone worthy of it. He had always dreamed of being a great hero like All Might, but now he couldn't settle for mediocrity. He needed to aspire to become a hero equal to, or even surpassing, All Might. He believed that was the best way to repay the trust All Might had placed in him, and the unwavering faith Kirishima had shown from their very first meeting. So, what I'm trying to say is just, thank you. You're such a plain guy. If you're grateful, show it through your actions later. Don't just say it. Yeah. As Midoriya smiled softly at Kirishima's gentle grin, he clenched his fist and made a silent vow. He would become the very best. Kirishima grinned at that sight. There was no need for any further encouragement. Midoriya had grown enough to face the future on his own terms. All Kirishima really wanted was for him to keep growing and become a true rival. After all, sitting alone on the throne is a lonely place to be. The two, each with their own dreams, walked onward as starlight poured down, illuminating their path. It was a quiet night, yet one filled with fierce determination. It had been some time since the summer sun first peered above the horizon. Kirishima gathered his belongings and stood at the entrance of Midoriya's house. It's a bit bittersweet to leave so soon after coming all this way. I wanted to treat you to something special during your stay, but it feels like I haven't quite managed that, he said. No, everything your mother made was delicious. Her cooking has a magic you just can't buy. No matter where you look, Midoriya replied. You're exaggerating. It wasn't that grand, Kirishima replied with a modest smile. I'm speaking as someone who's tasted plenty of good food. Honestly, it's amazing you don't pack on more weight, Midoriya, the young man said. Every time we talk, I'm reminded how well you handle conversations with adults, Midoriya added. Well, our experiences aren't the same. Don't underestimate the instincts of a veteran with 15 years under his belt. Besides, you may be a kind kid, but you hardly ever share your thoughts with your mother. Fix that, and you'd prove far more endearing. Even now, you're better than Bakugo, that idiot, Kirishima teased. That's only because it's hard. Besides, you and I have both been sons long enough. Midoriya shot back. True. Izuku, it wouldn't hurt if you explained a bit more to your mother about what's going on. Kirishima, on the other hand, has it easy. His mother really dotes on him, he said. I know I worry my mother a lot at home. I wish things could be different, but since I'm aiming to be a hero, I'm pretty much set to be an unfilial son. So I have to excel elsewhere. Understand, Midoriya? Sigh. All right, I'll try, came the resigned reply. Watching Midoriya's heavy sigh, Kirishima couldn't help but laugh. Midoriya was someone who excelled at helping others, yet tended to neglect the little details at home. If he could at least share what he was thinking or doing daily, even if he was trying to hide some things, it would be a big improvement over acting like a typical teenager. After all, he was still just a teenager. Well then, I must be off. Take care, ma'am. And Midoriya, don't overdo it, Kirishima said. Right? Have a safe trip. Next time you come, I'll whip up something truly delicious, the lady responded. I'm not overdoing it. Ever since we were kids, whenever Kirishima started overworking, he'd glare at me like he was about to set his eyes on fire. Even if he seems like he'd be fine in a natural disaster, you still need to be careful, Midoriya teased. That sounds harsh. I'd be in serious trouble if a disaster hit, too. Anyway, I really must go now. I'm off, Midoriya, Kirishima said. With a playful tousle of Midoriya's hair after all the banter, Kirishima bid his farewells. Stepping out the front door, a familiar sight greeted him. He had visited this neighborhood so many times since childhood that every corner was etched in his memory. Without hesitation, Kirishima headed to the station, grabbed a drink, and found a seat to wait for his reserved train. It was Saturday, and despite the early hour, the station bustled with people. Most of them were tourists. Watching the crowd, Kirishima thought about how roughly a third of his journey was already behind him. He had met good people and learned plenty along the way. In Tokyo, he had made friends with a charming little kid and another who shared his interests. In Mustafu, he had witnessed Midoriya and Bakugo grow. He hoped the rest of his journey would be just as smooth as he sipped his drink. By the time the glass was empty, it was nearly time for the train to arrive. Kirishima tossed the empty bottle into a trash can and stood up. A new martial art awaited him. Kyoto Station was sleek and modern like those in other cities, yet it possessed an old-world refinement. Perhaps it was the legacy of the ancient capital. With summer vacation coinciding with the weekend, the station teemed with people. Most were there to sightsee. Kyoto boasted a wealth of historic sites like Heian Shrine and Kinkakuji, but Kirishima wasn't particularly interested in them. He hadn't come all this way just to leisurely tour the landmarks. Instead, Kirishima hailed a taxi right outside the station. After stowing his duffel bag in the back seat and reciting the pre-checked address, the driver shot him a curious glance. Kid, were you invited there? The driver asked. Huh? I guess you could call it an invitation. I mentioned I was visiting and they agreed. Do you know the place, sir? It must be famous. And please, speak casually. I feel a bit uneasy when you're overly formal, like you're my grandfather, Kirishima replied. All right then. You might not know, but folks my age are well aware. It's not the house that's famous. It's the person who lives there. You didn't know? Well, back in the day, everyone in these parts knew the name Sri Muang. He was a good man, the driver said with a smile. Oh? The person who welcomed me said his name was Sri Muang as well, though his voice sounded rather old. He mentioned his name was Samit, Kirishima said. Exactly. Sri Muang Samit, the tiger Sri Muang. He once ruled Kyoto, the driver explained. The way you describe him makes it sound like his line of work was rather rough. Kirishima inquired. No need to worry. He wasn't Yakuza. Well, I can't say he wasn't a criminal, but he was truly a good man, the driver replied thoughtfully. Curiosity prickled in Kirishima as he wondered how someone could be labeled both a criminal and still be regarded as a good man. Was it even possible for one person to inspire such contradictory opinions? Intrigued, he pressed further. So, was he considered a villain? Was he involved in organized crime? Villain? No. He didn't have a quirk, so even if he wanted to be a villain, he couldn't. The driver explained with a chuckle. Not a villain either? Then what exactly did he do? It's not something you see these days, but do you know what a vigilante is? We often refer to them as self-appointed enforcers, he replied. I'm not entirely sure, but I have a general idea of what they're like. After All Might took down most of the villains, they became nearly impossible to find. And if any trouble arose, the sheer number of heroes meant people could always rely on them. But back in those days, things were very different. The taxi driver continued, shrugging with one arm resting on the steering wheel. There was something strangely dissonant about hearing him reminisce about the past in such a youthful tone, especially coming from an old man with completely white hair. Kirishima listened intently. Let's see. The first time that man came to this area was 50 years ago. I was just a bright-eyed college student back then. Those were truly chaotic times, the driver recalled. I've heard it was far worse than it is now, Kirishima remarked. Exactly. Public safety was in utter disarray. The police were clueless. There were too few heroes, and villains lurked everywhere. Kyoto wasn't the serene, ancient capital. It was more like a battleground, the driver explained. That must have been incredibly tough, Kirishima said sympathetically. It was rough for everyone. I struggled too, but back then, once the sun went down, no one felt safe venturing out. And then that man appeared, the driver said. Did he fight the villains? Kirishima asked. He didn't just fight them. The very street we're headed to was once a den crawling with villains. With no quirk to rely on, he beat them down with his bare hands, driving them out. Without a hero license, you might think he'd be in trouble for using even a hint of a quirk, but being quirkless meant he wasn't subject to the harsher penalties. If he were charged at all, it would have been for excessive self-defense. The police turned a blind eye more or less, the driver elaborated. Wow. He must have been really strong, Kirishima murmured, excitement building within him at the thought of a quirkless man who had single-handedly cleaned up an entire street. Over generations, quirks had combined and grown stronger. But that didn't mean the power of old generation abilities could be dismissed. Quirks were, at their core, potent weapons. Their strength increased over time either through the merging of like abilities or through synergistic combinations of different quirks. Bakugo being a prime example of the latter. Yet, regardless of the era, the mere presence of a quirk made those without one vulnerable. Even if it wasn't as all-encompassing as modern electricity-type quirks, imagine someone capable of discharging enough electricity from both hands to rival a stun gun. Challenging to face for any quirkless individual. In that sense, a man like Sri Muang Samit was likely a master of his craft. Of course he was strong. Even the most formidable villains would cower before Sri Muang. Later on, thanks to him, countless former criminals turned their lives around, settling down right in these streets, the driver said, his excitement evident. So you knew him personally? You recognized the address immediately, Kirishima observed. Haha, busted. Sri Muang probably doesn't remember me, but he's been a benefactor. I was a third-year university student when my family ran into financial trouble. I'd been at school for nearly 3 years with just over a year to go, but I couldn't afford the tuition. I couldn't bring myself to give up after coming this far. So I took a leave of absence and ended up doing manual labor instead. The driver recounted. That must have been so challenging, Kirishima said. Not really. When you're making money, It's just a matter of hard work. I went to a job meeting and, before I knew it, I blacked out. When I came to, I was strapped to a metal bed, tied up so tightly I couldn't move and even gagged. Then a man in surgical scrubs came in and started coldly counting my organs, as if deciding how to best use them. I was terrified and could only cry, the driver recalled. Good grief. Were there people openly trafficking human beings right in the heart of the city? Kirishima asked, frowning. The driver shook his head as he continued. They were absolute scum. Just when I thought I was doomed, I heard shouts and the sound of something crashing. Not long after, a huge man burst through the door. Even though I was still tied up, I managed a glimpse. He was foaming at the mouth with his eyes rolled back. Serves him right, Kirishima muttered. Exactly. In that split second, a desperate hope stirred in me. Even as I feared that if another villain had caused this, they wouldn't leave a witness behind. Then, kicking the broken door apart, strode Sri Muang, the driver said. What a dramatic entrance. Incredible, Kirishima exclaimed. It was indeed remarkable. The moment he arrived, he knocked out the thug who had been harassing me. That guy's quirk turned his fingers into scalpels. Yet Sri Muang showed not even a flicker of concern. Then he untied me, the driver continued. You really came close to death. You must be deeply grateful to him, Kirishima commented. Grateful? Absolutely. And it didn't end there. Once he heard my story, Sri Muang took me to his home. Though he couldn't help with my tuition due to his own financial struggles, he promised to help me find a job, and he did. Thanks to him, I managed to get by, earning enough to resume school within half a year. I eventually graduated safely, the driver explained. Kirishima found himself in awe of such extraordinary deeds. It wasn't just about saving someone. It was the care in understanding their circumstances and lending a hand that truly epitomized heroism. In modern times, even heroes rarely extend their help to that degree. Their roles have become so defined, dealing with villains, rescuing citizens, and protecting lives, that investigating each victim's story has largely been left to other agencies. That, perhaps, is why the legend of Sri Muang felt all the more impressive. Wow, he really wasn't just a common criminal, was he? It must have been challenging to take such care in every situation, Kirishima remarked. Exactly. He's a remarkable man. Thanks to him, a young man who was once helplessly at the mercy of villains went on to graduate from college, secure a job, get married, and even have children, and now grandchildren. Honestly, I do this work nowadays simply because retired life was getting too dull. And because of that, I get to meet solid young men like you and reminisce about my younger days. It's all thanks to Sri Muang, the driver said with a warm laugh. I only came across his name online, and he rarely speaks about himself. But thanks to you, I have a much clearer picture of who he is, Kirishima admitted. Haha, my house is on the same street as his mansion. In a way, the road we're on now is pretty much the same route home for me, the driver added. Ah, I see. No wonder it feels so familiar. I initially thought it was just because you've spent years in Kyoto, but it turns out it really is your homecoming route, Kirishima observed. It's a mix of experience and homecoming, I suppose. Haha, look at us, already arrived and chatting away. Now, get out, the driver said, signaling the end of their conversation. Responding to the driver's cue, Kirishima pulled out his wallet. As always, Japanese taxi fares were steep, but after hearing such a captivating story, he felt no hesitation in paying. Keep the fare. Just pass my regards to Sri Muang if you see him, he said. No, sir, that won't do. I was the one privileged to hear such an amazing story. How can I not pay? The driver protested. After a brief tug-of-war over the fare, their little dispute ended with Kirishima's victory as he left the money in the taxi and practically dashed off with his bag. Stepping out of the taxi, Kirishima bowed politely to the old man. Thanks to you, I arrived safely. If we ever meet again, I'll be looking forward to another one of your stories, he said. Even if I say it's fine, next time I'll spin another tale, and I won't take your money either. Whatever business brings you to Sri Muang's place, I hope it turns out well. You're a solid young man. I'm sure he'll appreciate you, the driver replied. Haha. Even if he doesn't like me at first, I'll make sure he comes around eventually. Take care, Kirishima said with a smile. All right then. This old man is on his way, the driver added. After bidding the old man a warm farewell, Kirishima turned and looked ahead. A grand Japanese mansion loomed before him. The weight of one man's legacy seemed to press upon him, yet he could only smile. Inside, a man who had taken down villains without a quirk was waiting for him. His heart pounded fiercely. It was shaping up to be a good day indeed.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going. Plus, it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.